And if we could have Rory please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rory. Could we have the roll call, please?
Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Lang,
Here.
Director Cussler,
Yes.
Director Nichols.
Yes.
Director Buss.
Yes.
Thank you. All present and accounted for. Item 3, special presentations. We have 2 this evening. First is the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority. Take it away, Rory. The mic on?
Now it is. Thank you. Logistics. I appreciate very much you asking me to come to give you a little preview or précis of what the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority is and does. It is a joint exercise of powers agency between the Conejo Rec and Park District, Rancho Simi Rec and Park District, and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. The chair of the MRCA is Director Lang and has been for quite a few years. It also includes Dan Pernick, the general manager of the Rancho Simi Park District, Irma Munoz, who's a Conservancy board member, and Jim Hasenauer, who's the public member appointed by the other 3 board members. It's been in existence since 1985. It is at this point, I would actually dare to say that it's the preeminent park and conservation agency in Southern California. I think we're up to getting close to 100,000 acres of land preserved with the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy and land owned by the MRCA. Jim Friedel serves as the financial officer for MRCA. So the Park District has been integral from the very beginning. And you are such a principal partner. There's no way that all these success stories could have happened without the Conejo Recreation and Park District. Let me go on to the next. So it was formed, as I said, Could you advance one? The right. Nope.
There we go.
Okay. So it actually came about. The Conservancy had given $1 million grant to the district to purchase the Carlisle Inlet picnic grounds at Lake Sherwood. This is when it was a fairly bucolic site. Some of you old timers might remember, there was a lot of controversy. Dayton Realty owned the property, wanted to develop. They drained the lake on the fiction that they needed to do that to inspect the dam. The appropriation was going to expire, and Tex Ward, your former general manager, came up with the idea with Joe Edmiston, my boss. How about if we form a JPA, and then the Conservancy can re-grant that $1 million to the JPA, hence the MRCA. There we go. Another big acquisition in the mid 1980s was Circle X Ranch, former Boy Scout property, 1,600 acres at the top of the Santa Monica Mountains. We think of it as Boney Mountain. Sandstone Peak is part of that property. We had a sort of a big fight the Conservancy did with the sister state agency, the State Coastal Conservancy. They had money to buy it. They didn't want to grant it for this. They said it's too far away from the coast, and we actually made it happen. Actually, in some degree, thanks to former Assembly Member Tom McClintock, of all people. He had been a Boy Scout and had gone to that property, and he really wanted it saved. However, because the northern part was outside of the coastal zone, the Coastal Conservancy couldn't grant those funds, but we said, but it's in the MRCA. So MRCA used some of the money from the repurposed Lake Sherwood grant to acquire that, and also the Lang Ranch, Oak Brook Park area. Here's some views of Circle X. It's now owned by the National Park Service. We turned it over to the Park Service in 1987. Then another big appropriation was the Conservancy had given to the Rancho Simi district to buy China Flat, Bob Hope's property at the top of the former Jordan Ranch or Palo Camado Canyon. Hope was not a willing seller. He said, I'm not going to carve off that property. You can buy all of my land for $30 million. It was, not at all possible at that time. But so we appropriated the grant to Rancho Simi to the MRCA. And it is a great connector because it does connect over to Rancho Simi jurisdiction on the other side of the top of the Simi Hills. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, there were a lot of landfill proposals by Los Angeles County Sanitation District. Towsey Canyon was one of them. It was only 145 acre property, but we were importuned to try and buy that, which we did. And then after that, Chevron, which owned the majority of the property in what's called the Santa Clarita Woodlands, just west of the 5 freeway and the Newhall Pass, had great development plans because they weren't doing oil well work in there anymore. We were able to buy over 2,000 acres of Chevron property, and then they donated Mentryville, 850 acres. It was the site of the first commercially successful oil well west of Pennsylvania, 1876. So it is a historic site, very popular spot for hiking and movie filming. So the Woodlands is quite extraordinary. It is a remnant forest. There's big cone Douglas fir, 5 species of oak, very, very rich in biodiversity and wildlife. Towsey Canyon, with the first acquisition, had a ranch house that we use as a lodge so people can rent it for events or for weddings. Wildlife connectivity has been an organizing principle for the Conservancy and MRCA. It has actually informed our land use strategies and policies to try and acquire properties that have great significance for maintaining the ability to connect across the mountain ranges. The Santa Clarita Woodlands was a case in point. And of course, Liberty Canyon is another one. The MRCA bought property on both the north and south sides of the freeway in an effort to at least preserve the possibility of habitat connectivity. Some of you may remember that a number of years ago right at the Liberty off-ramp, there's a big plateau and had a giant billboard that said future home of Carpeteria. So that was a landmark day when we were able to chainsaw down that sign and pull it down, and then acquired other properties in the meantime. So this is going to be the site. In fact, it is the site of the ongoing construction for the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Bridge. Other properties that lead up to that are part of the whole wildlife connectivity, Triangle Ranch in Negura Hills. We just completed about a year ago the final piece of Triangle Ranch, which had an approved tentative track map on it. We'll be dedicating that in honor of former Supervisor Sheila Kuehl on May 21st, and everyone is invited, just off Keenan Doom Road. The Annenberg Wildlife Crossing, as you know, has been a long-term project with partners, the National Park Service and their biologists, National Wildlife Federation, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, Caltrans, and principally MRCA. So MRCA and Caltrans have a management or cooperative agreement whereby Caltrans is doing the work. They bill MRCA. MRCA pays those invoices with the grants that National Wildlife Federation has accumulated, and also a big grant from the Conservancy. So we're all interconnected here. The Park Service biologists are absolutely key. They've been the ones that have sort of helped promote the idea that this is the last remaining spot where we could get a lot of animals across the freeway. Or we tried under the freeway. A tunnel was not going to work scientifically, although it could have been done by engineering, but it would not have been good for animals. So that bridge is under construction, where it'll also go over Agura Road. That's stage 2. And the target is completion by late 2022 2025, God willing. This was the groundbreaking a year ago on Earth Day with Governor Newsom and a cast of thousands. We had all the local congressional delegation members, Senator Padilla, all kinds of folks. And Wallace Annenberg, which you may wonder, why is it called the Wallace Annenberg Wildlife Crossing? Her philanthropic efforts put in 25 million towards the total, about 92 million for the construction costs. Other landmark properties that MRCA manages include this one in Pacific Palisades. It's owned by the Conservancy, but that's something to really remember. The Conservancy only has 6 staff people and does not have the ability to actually manage or steward property. We don't have those kind of that staff has not been appropriated by the legislature. So MRCA has about 140 staff, fire division people, rangers, maintenance, construction, park planners, and finance. Yay, finance. So Temescal is a beautiful property. It was a historic site. The Methodist Church owned it in the 1920s and created a Chautauqua Center. So it was a very, very important cultural landmark. It has cabins dating back to the 1920s that we've renovated, that people have conferences. We've had outdoor school camp there. And it's a great entry point into the Topanga State Park. Lots and lots of trail users. If you went up Temescal Canyon to the top, you'd be over the ridge and into the top of the Santa Monica Mountains off Encino Vista Drive. This is in Mulholland, Dirt Mulholland. This is San Vicente Mountain Park, a former Nike radar site from the Cold War. We were able to repurpose the tower, the radar tower, and some of the other buildings and interpret the Cold War aspect of that site. But it has amazing views all the way to the ocean, all over the San Fernando Valley. I think one of the little known facts is that this was one of the radar stations along the coast that were to detect incoming ICBMs and then signal down into the heart of the San Fernando Valley, where there were missiles, and also on Oak Mountain, that would then apparently or theoretically blast the enemy missiles out of the sky over Ventura County. They decided that Ventura County was a little more rural and more expendable, apparently. The Los Angeles River Center and Gardens in downtown LA was the former Lowry's California Center that had the restaurants and mariachis and a big spice factory on the site. That was going to get torn down, a Home Depot and a strip mall on the property. And through a lot of hard work and several different funding sources and the cooperation of several different elected offices, including the city of Los Angeles and the state assembly and Prop A, the open space district of Los Angeles County, we were able to acquire that property in 1998. And it is extremely popular in the neighborhood. People think of it as a historic site, although it was built in the early 70s by the Van de Kamp and Frank family to be a sort of a showcase for Southern California cuisine and to highlight the spices and seasoning salt and everything that they had. And you all know about Amundsen Ranch, now called Upper Las Virgenes Canyon Open Space Preserve. MRCA was the recipient of the first 2,500 acres as a dedication. Home Savings and Loan and Washington Mutual had to perfect their specific plan with Ventura County. This was going to be the site of 3,000 units of housing, 2 golf courses, hotels, commercial. But the main north-south stem of Upper Las Virgenes Canyon was to be dedicated without cost to the MRCA, which happened. That and Rocky Peak north of the 118 freeway, another Bob Hope property, and Corral Canyon in Malibu, another Bob Hope property. And what is maybe a little known fact is the Conejo Recreation and Park District, you have a conservation easement over all those Bob Hope land properties. So you have to hold our feet to the fire if we try and do anything you don't want. Here's some of the views. Was it used for filming going back into the 19 teens? big productions. They died with their boots on, and Duel Under the Sun, and Charge of the Light Brigade. And I think Gunga Din may have also been a silent film, may have been filmed out there. Petticoat Junction. This has all preceded our getting the property, but it is a state property. The Conservancy bought it in 2003 with Proposition 50 funding. But we were required to create a separate license agreement with MRCA that has MRCA as the land manager. The state of California said, we don't want to pay for any upkeep. We don't want that liability or responsibility. So thank you, MRCA. There's a ranch house that was built in the 1930s by the a former owner, George Barrett IV. It's been renovated and it's used for conferences and weddings and meetings. Then SoCA, the former SoCA University site at the very heart of the Santa Monica Mountains at the crossroads of Las Virgenes Road and Mulholland Highway was a many decade-long land use struggle as well. Eventually, SoCA sold. We used a number of funding sources. Various state agencies put in a lot of money, and MRCA was the takedown entity. Part of it is owned by the Park Service, part by state parks, but the grounds of the historic mansion and site are owned by MRCA. The visitor center was repurposed for the National Recreation Area out of what was a stable, a beautiful stable. Wallace Neff, a famous architect, had designed the facilities. And a lot of people say, why is it called King Camp Gillette? Because he was the inventor of the safety razor, or at least a safety razor magnet. And he commissioned Wallace Neff in the late 1920s to build a ranch for himself. And so most of the buildings were from that era, although some others came about some years later. The Los Angeles River is another huge project of MRCA, river revitalization. And our park rangers, actually maybe a decade or so ago, came up with the idea of how about kayaking on the river? It's proved to be super popular. The Sepulveda Basin part of the river, it looks like a bayou. It's very, very verdant, and you would never know that there's greater Los Angeles right outside the banks. But also in the Elysian Valley part of the river, Atwater Village, opposite Griffith Park, the MRCA bought up a lot of small parcels and created beautiful little river parks. There's a bikeway along the river there, Steelhead Park, Oso Park, Egret Park, and the Lewis McAdam Riverfront Park is very popular as well. There's facilities there that we built. Swiftwater training is something our rangers do. During the storm events, they are on standby and have many times assisted LA City Fire Department and other rescue efforts to keep people out of the river. Ensuring access to the Malibu coast is another big project of the MRCA and the Conservancy. We have the beautiful coastline. There are a lot of public access ways that were being blocked off or not really available. The State Coastal Commission and the State Coastal Conservancy importuned MRCA to open up and improve a lot of those access ways and provided funding to do it. This is one of the groups that we brought. Every summer, we have a number of trips that bring out groups from Pacoima, downtown, Compton. Some of these kids have never seen the ocean, and it's a huge day for them. A lot of other things going on, a lot of access sites that the Coastal Commission is required to be left open, but they have to be improved. So getting the conditional use permits through City of Malibu has been a challenge, but we're still working on it. This is a park that was bought 20 years ago, funded by the State Coastal Conservancy, and we're still working through the improvements to create a restroom and improve stair access and ADA access to that facility. Hopefully it will be done within a year. Another Malibu property, Escondido Canyon, it has trails that extend all the way to the beach. We bought a property there's a tunnel under PCH at Latigo Canyon It provides beach access if people are coming down from the mountains or vice versa. And then up adjoining National Park Service property. And of course, you all know Broom Ranch, AKA Rancho Potrero Open Space, formerly known as the Huck property. In the early 90s, MRCA George was there, went to the probate hearing for the estate of George Paterius Huck, who had owned the property. We were shut out of getting it then, but eventually MRCA was able to buy that property with a big grant of 1.9 million from the district, 1 million from the city. The Park Service had pledged to buy 300 acres of it with funding that was coming later, and the Conservancy provided the rest. So another partnership acquisition that didn't happen easily. And here's the latest and greatest. This is 1,400 acres on the Malibu, actually the Ventura County coastline, Deer Creek open space, Deer Creek Beaches, it's called. It was formerly known as the Mansdorf property. Mr. Mansdorf in the 70s had plans for either hotels, or he had put in a bid to have it as a liquefied natural gas port, which luckily did not happen. But Trust for Public Land has the option on the property. It should be closing soon. MRCA has an undivided $10 million interest in the property. So a third of the property is MRCA's, and the escrow should be closing any day now on that. Here's some views. It's got the most spectacular views. Be great for whale watching or stargazing. I think the Park Service will have plans to create more trails for the Coastal Slope Trail and potentially camping. MRCA hosts a restoration crew. We have in lieu fee mitigation funding that comes from the Army Corps or California Department of Fish and Wildlife to do restoration on a lot of degraded properties. So between riparian restoration and upland restoration, also very active in a lot of tree planting with fire resiliency funding. That's Upper Las Virgenes open space next to Hidden Valley on the two right-hand photos. We're planting thousands of oak trees as both a shaded fuel break and to improve the biodiversity in that area. Some more restoration sites in the mountains and the undercrossing at Liberty Canyon, which was done before the bridge was contemplated. Having more planting to make it a little more attractive for animals to proceed underneath without getting hit. Our fire division we're very proud of the fire division. Starting in the early 90s when there were fires, I think the Big Topanga fire of 93 almost wiped out one of our parks. LA County was too busy defending other areas. And we said, that park resources needed to have their own protection, but it's grown. Our staff are fully trained. California Office of Emergency Services regularly calls up the MRCA to go to out of area fires, and they've been all over the state fighting big campaign fires and additionally protecting our own area, and are available for call outs. Anytime there's a spot fire, they can be on it often before the regular fire agencies are. So how do we pay for all this? It's not easy. Melissa will describe a little more, but we've had to be very entrepreneurial over the years. Filming is a big part of our revenue stream. Hopefully the writers' strike won't go on too much longer. We host events. We have leases of antennas that were on properties that we acquired, many, many weddings at a number of venues, parking fees in certain areas, the restoration in lieu fee mitigation funding, random donations. We get people just sending in checks or PayPal donations all the time, including one sort of mystery one for 300,000 that just appeared in our bank account by wire transfer, and mutual aid reimbursements for the fire division work. And MRCA created with a voter approval, got community facilities districts approved in the eastern Santa Monica Mountains in the city of Los Angeles, which provide for funding for both ranger patrol, fire patrol, and acquisitions. And I am going to turn it over to Melissa to talk about the dollars and cents.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna get logged in and then I'll share because, you know, the finance side is the most exciting part. So, and while it's loading, I've been an employee of MRCA, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and CRPD. So my last day before retirement, I have to work for Rancho and I can have MRCA bingo. This. Okay, so where do we fit in this whole world that Rory just explained? So in short, we serve as the finance officer, we process all payments, we do the cash management, we supervise the MRCA finance staff, and we handle some strategic planning. So to explain the finance officer part, this is the senior staff of the MRCA, and I know it's very little, so I'll briefly explain it. At the very top are the two boards, the CRPD board and the MRCA board, represented by those chairs is Chuck Huffer and George Lang. Next is Joe, our executive officer, and then Rory. And the unique situation is that for several of those senior staff, they are also senior staff of the Conservancy. So because of this close relationship between the Conservancy and the MRCA and the money that goes between the two, we needed to have the money be completely separate from the SMMC and the SMMC and the MRCA to make sure there was no conflict of interest. So all the money goes on the CRPD side. So our general manager serves as the finance officer. I'm then the administrator, and then the MRCA finance staff all report to me. So that's a way of making sure that even though MRCA and the SMMC work very, very closely together, we're making sure that the money is always good. So we serve as that. What the CRPD staff do is they handle all of the payments. So every payment to every vendor, every payroll, it's all going through CRPD staff. We also handle the taxes that are associated with that and the reporting associated with that. Because we touch the payroll, we also are involved in some of the human resources management, like benefits and retirement, and all the things that go with the payroll. Our IT department also has to coordinate with MRCA resources so that we can have access to the same accounting system and all of that. And the cash management, we're the ones that have authority with the banks. We balance and reconcile all the reports, and we manage the lines of credit that the MRCA uses. So what do the MRCA finance staff do? Because that sounds like a lot that the CRPD finance staff do. So I'm going to ask you to imagine a budget like a Death Star. So we're going to call this the CRPD Death Star budget. And so envision that as all the expenses you want to do in a year, but we need to fund it. So every revenue is going to be a different color of paint that we're painting this Death Star with. So for CRPD, we've got property tax, which is the primary funding source. We've got our assessment district. We've got Rancho Conejo assessment, Dos Vientos, and then the other revenues we get from programs or rentals or the other stuff that comes up. So this is a pretty typical CRPD budget Death Star. And that's a pretty good model for how we function every single year with our revenues. Now, I'm going to have you compare it. If I can get it to click. Come on. To an MRCA Death Star. So an MRCA budget is typically 2 to 3 times bigger than a CRPD one, and there is no primary funding source, as Rory was explaining. Instead, it's a multitude of funding sources. The last budget had over 240 different revenue sources with very specific scopes that they're allowed to be used on. So what the MRCA finance staff does is they are making the budget to somehow make all of these different colors of paint actually cover the whole Death Star. And then every single month, they're making sure that the expenses are assigned to the correct color of paint. And then the other half of the staff is going and trying to get the paint, because most of these funding sources are done on a reimbursement basis. So you can build the Death Star, but you can't paint it until you go and ask people for it. So that's what the MRCA finance staff does. I take all the information from working with them and with Rory and senior staff to make sure that this works every single year. It's worked since 1985, but it is a beast of a budget to manage. We take all that information and then we work with the CRPD staff who's handling the actual payments and processing to make all the cash flow work. So that's in short what we do for the MRCA. And here was just a pretty photo and some Ewoks.
There it is. And I will also add, MRCA does pay the district for that financial service.
Yes.
It's not gratis.
No. So yeah, and with that, I'm available for
Okay.
questions or anything.
Questions?
Rory, Melissa, thank you very much. If anybody in the board has brief comments or questions.
I want to.
Yeah. Mayor Hopper.
Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rory, thank you for the excellent presentation. These memories were coming back and forth, all these different projects that we worked on for decades. I mean, for you, it's just off the top of the head. I keep saying we need a book from Rory Skay on the history of open space acquisition over the last decades. And I thought it was just going to be like a memoir, but it sounds like it ought to be more like the art of the deal on all these transactions that you've taken place. And I can think of nobody better than you. And I'm just, grateful that you're part of our community, that you assist with our open space organization, and that you have been kind of like this linchpin holding all these things together. But just to see that full spectrum of all these things that we kind of knew about, but you see them all at once and you realize, wow, that's a lot. And it's just fortunate that we can be a part of that. Sometimes I think we're just kind of on the sidelines, but I know with Melissa and her staff's work that and I know Jim too, just they're right in the thick of things. So, and George, I mean, all of them, they're very active. So thank you for that presentation. Hopefully we'll have another successful 40 years of this going on. So thank
God
you.
willing. I probably won't be around, but you will.
Director Lang.
Yes, as you can imagine, I can add a lot to the information that you've just been shown. As chair, I'm very proud to be associated with the MRCA, and as mentioned, I think she mentioned it, I've been on the board of the MRCA since I became a board member of CRPD. Our previous general manager, Tex Ward, selected me to be the chair. And so many things that you saw, just in a brief moment is so dramatic when you see it, firsthand. Many of you probably been to King Gillette Ranch and taken some hikes or been to some major events there and so forth. And the other venue is the LA River Gardens Center. Those are our two main entertainment, I don't know if that's the right word, but venues for the public that can rent and utilize for weddings and whatever activities they want. And they are, when you see them, when you go down to King Gillette Ranch or the LA River Center, you really get a feel for some really spectacular venues. And to know that we as a board here have our role, and Doug and Chuck are also on COSCA board. All of this comes together for the public, you people. And Rory, thank you. Good presentation.
Thank you. And let me reiterate, the Conejo Recreation and Park District is the linchpin of all these efforts. And we so appreciate your benign benevolence. And we look forward again to continued years of partnership.
Okay, just very, Roy, again, thank you very much for all the information. It should be pointed out, I don't think it was mentioned that in her spare time, Rory is also the chair of the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency. So
We're
in
all
her spare
very
time.
networked here.
And I did, then all the slides you had is, I did note that you had several slides on the Enberg Wildlife Crossing. Jim sent out an email just a day or two ago. I think you're going to need to add a picture of a black bear
Black bear.
using
Yep.
that crossing as well. So
Boo Boo wanted to come to Malibu.
if you'd like to, certainly.
Anyway, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I was very touched by this. I was doing a lot of research one time on big cats, and I assumed that this was true, that the only other place that has big cats near a large metropolitan area is Mumbai, India. And so that's a pretty big deal. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, the wildlife crossing and what we have here in LA to being such a big place and having big cats is, you know, wonderful, and what an excellent resource that we have, that you've put your heart and soul in, and that George has put his heart and soul in to make this a reality for this community. It's something that I don't think that we all appreciate. So I heard your name so many times before I ever met you. So it's been a joy to meet you. And a couple of things I just also wanted to say. I've biked along the LA River, but I didn't know there was kayaking. So I think that's in my future. The LA River Gardens is in my future. And I was very interested when you said that that was a wonderful stable at King Gillette Ranch. I saw it when I thought it was a ruin, and I heard they were going to make a visitor center out of it. And I thought, really? I was hiking around there. It looked like a ruin to me. Like, and I thought it was pretty bad. And, but it was nice to see that some people had a vision, because I'm into historical restoration, and that they made it into a beautiful visitor center. It's a wonderful place to be. So I'm glad that they didn't knock that down. And just one other thing that is just personal. My father worked at Oat Mountain most of the time I was growing up. It was a telephone relay station. He was in the phone company, and I wonder if he knew there were missiles up there. It was underground. He probably knew. He didn't mention it, but when you said that, I was kind of blown away, because I've been up to Oat Mountain many times, you know, with my father. So you gave me a lot of information, and I loved seeing the history of MRCA. I also did donate to MRCA. The first time I ever knew about MRCA was many, many years ago, when I received a parking ticket. And you know, the way it is in the mountains, you never quite know which is free and which has a fee. So I guess this part, on this side of the line, there was a fee, and on this side of the line, there wasn't a fee. So I get this parking ticket, and I was very kind of upset at the $60 parking ticket, but I thought, I'm going to think of it as a donation. I am now donating to this place, MRCA. So hopefully I'll make some more donations in the future. And I was very impressed by your presentation, so I'm sure I will. Thank you very much.
Director Russ, did you have anything?
Sure.
No.
Yes, I'm very impressed being the newest one on the board. It's I've heard a lot about this because Melissa and I met, and she explained somewhat what she did for it in very brief detail. But it was really, and the Death Con Star was amazing, because that really shows. I love the visuals. Yeah, it was great. Because when you were trying to explain it before, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, so thank you so much for that presentation, because I did not know all about that, even though I've been here forever. But thank you.
All right. And the second special presentation we have from folks from our new and improved Thousand Oaks Teen Center. Who's going to be presenting here?
Are we going to do the
Got to make some fun here.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Summer's coming.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Get excited, grandkids. Stay home, have fun.
This would be used. This would be used in the pool. Yeah, that's what I thought they were gonna do. I thought they were gonna be like doing the wave out there. Yeah, that'd be funny. Yeah. Oh, look at that.
I just have one push, I'll just have to do it. If you just go to my main or screen.
Good evening. Chair Heffer, members of the board, Conejo Recreation Park District Administration, and from what I could see, lots of pickleball players. Welcome. Good evening. My name's Sarah Dobb. I'm the director of the Thousand Oaks Teen Center. And with me tonight, I have Mr. Jay Dodwell, recreation coordinator. And then we also have a guest speaker, John, who will introduce at the end of my little spiel. Go ahead. So tonight we're going to talk about something that we do at the Teen Center. The Thousand Oaks Teen Center, in partnership with the Conejo Valley Unified School District, provides the only school organized sports programs for the middle school level where each school competes against each other, known as the Middle School Sport League program. 25 years ago, two schools wanted to put together a boys basketball team to play each other, and the Teen Center was asked to be the host location. The principals served as the coaches in what turned out to be an incredibly competitive game. The gym was at capacity with rowdy students and parents. The score was close the whole way through, leading to the players on the edge of their seats, hoping for that championship title. After the game, Teen Center staff and two principals knew they had created something special. Over the next few years, additional schools joined in. Scorekeeping and rules were implemented, resulting in a true league format. At the end of each school year, Teen Center staff would host a league evaluation meeting to discuss what went well and what they could improve on for future years. The Teen Center continued to cooperatively offer boys basketball for the fall in the next 2 to 3 years. Girls basketball was added in the winter season, all the while evaluating and refining rules and guidelines to make it as fair and enjoyable as possible. A component was even eventually incorporated that rewards proper behavior from players, coaches, and parents. At the conclusion of each season, staff, referees, and scorekeepers decide on one school to receive that sportsmanship award. The chosen team receives T-shirts for demonstrating the developed criteria the best. Over the next decade, the leagues expanded. Girls and boys basketball was offered in both the 7th and 8th grade levels. The games were extremely well attended and incredibly competitive. About the year 2000, middle schools all added gymnasiums to their campuses, and that would then serve as the practice sites for all of these teams. Additional sports were added over the years and continue now are the basketball, girls and boys volleyball, co-ed volleyball, boys and girls soccer, and co-ed golf, all over the fall, winter, and spring seasons. The success of the Middle School League is due to it being cooperatively. CVUSD has continued an active role in its development. Principals and school staff can always be seen at the Teen Center for the games. And any rule changes are always discussed with Teen Center staff and school district staff. So you may be asking, how does the Teen Center benefit? First, we offer the gym. Students are introduced to the facility and what it has to offer. It also gives parents an inside view of where their teens may be hanging out. We have a wide audience to promote future programming to. 3 teams that receive team T-shirts as awards at the end of the season, wear them around town to promote the Teen Center and the leagues. And last, there is a revenue benefit. The schools each pay a team fee for each sport for each season. It's $300 and it covers T-shirts, referees, and professional scorekeepers. Some schools have funded jerseys, but most will wear their school PE T-shirts. Schools individually formulate their teams. They actually hold tryouts, and yes, they do actually cut some students from the teams. And then they organize weekly practices, and then the Teen Center hosts the games on a weekly basis. Prior to each season, we host a coach meeting to ensure rules are reviewed and take any schedule requests. We also use a website called quickscores.com. And that's where we post schedules and scores. And that's also viewable to the public. And then at the start of each sports season, the teen center staff always review the expectations with the players and coaches, and then they get team photos. And a lot of the schools use the photos for their yearbooks. To give you an example of how big the program has gotten this school year, 2022-2023, we have had 59 total teams serving approximately 740 middle school students. The benefits of student participation in league play are endless. Student athletes develop a sense of pride and school allegiance that usually wouldn't begin until the high school level. Within the past 10 years, each school now has hung banners in their gyms displaying league championships. And at some schools, rallies are held at lunchtime to celebrate recent team accomplishments. Of course, this doesn't go down without creating lots of memories, laughter, and fun, all having to do with the teen center. And we know it will continue and offer a lot more for the future. I would now like to pass it on to Jay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We have a little bonus to our presentation tonight. We have a guest speaker, and John McFadden's going to come on and talk. And just a little background on John, he's sitting behind me. He has volunteered for Sycamore Canyon Middle School, coaching basketball and volleyball for them for the last 7 years. So anybody that's coached knows how much time goes into coaching. And he lives in Newberry Park at Sycamore Canyon, traveling to the teen center at that time after school, the 23 freeway. Everybody's familiar with that traffic. Practices, a lot of time puts in. Is that why we asked him to come speak tonight? No. It's the way that John coaches is what's really key. He really brings out the spirit of the teen center leagues and the way he really holds up sportsmanship. When we talk to the kids before each game, we always go sportsmanship's up here, winning down here. He really exemplifies that characteristic. And we're really happy to have him. Sycamore, I'm sure, is really happy as well. So let me turn it over to John. He's going to say a few words here.
Good evening, everyone, on this May the 4th be with you day. What a fun day to be speaking to you. I appreciate it. So I am here to talk about middle school sports, but before we get there, let's talk a little bit about an alien planet known as high school. Because it all starts there. And entering high school is kind of like playing Pac-Man, if you remember that game from back in the day. Except now when you get to high school, the ghosts in the Pac-Man game, they're all wearing pajamas, the Pac-Man has acne, and the kids, they're all waiting to play while they're vaping and yelling at their grandma could beat your high score. I mean, it's just all nuts when you get to high school. It is. It's tough. It's tough as a middle schooler trying to make that transition. There is nothing easy about it. But kids need to find their thing. And their thing is what will get them through high school. Everyone's thing is different. For some kids, it could be chess club, band, ASG, dance, drama, choir, and for some, it's sports. The goal is to find like-minded individuals that share your passion. It's more important than ever for them to have a positive and healthy outlet. This is the beginning of figuring out who they are. So with that, I'd like to read a letter that one of my players, basketball players, last year wrote to me after our season. She says, Coach John, thank you so much for such an awesome season. You were probably the best coach I've ever had, and I've had quite a few. You never yelled at us like some of the other coaches of the other teams did. And instead, you kept us encouraged. You made playing basketball as fun as possible, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. You taught me a lot, and with your guidance, I feel like I improved. I looked forward to basketball so much that during the day, it crawled by at a subatomic speed, but it was worth it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I mention that because there's three things in that letter that to me are really important. One is the not yelling. And I see that as a coach, I see that way too much. I see the coaches get into it at a level that is just not productive. It's not conducive to that kid finding the passion in that sport that they're there for, whatever the sport is. It's all about encouraging a love of that sport, whatever that sport is, making it fun. Yeah, duh, sounds like such a simple thing, but it's not. It's not. We have to remind ourselves that the kids are there to have fun, first and foremost. And third, she mentioned subatomic speed. Well, I say that jokingly because what she really means is that's her thing. Her thing is basketball. That's why she's there, and she found her thing. That girl, by the way, went on to try out for the Newbury Park High School team and made the team, which to me is absolutely the best reward I've ever seen. So my philosophy is to encourage a love of the game, teach new skills, and show what teamwork and competition is all about. Winning is a byproduct of learning, competing, and being a team player. A byproduct. It's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to encourage the love of the game and have fun. So imagine the first day of high school being analogous to the first time you walked into Costco. It's huge. So many new things, new smells, new people, temptations at every turn, samples of things you've never tried. Probably you shouldn't try some of these. People using peer pressure to make you try solar, water conditioning, cell service. It can be overwhelming, just like the first few days of high school. And you know, middle school is a time for change. It's a big, huge time for change for people. They're going through puberty, making new friends, trying to figure out who they are. And it's during this time that it's more important than ever for them to have positive and healthy outlets. Sports can provide that outlet. They can help young people stay physically active, which of course helps their health and well-being. It can also help them develop important life skills, teamwork, discipline, and leadership. They learn how to interact with others, resolve conflict, and how to be a good sport. All qualities that will help them navigate this strange new alien world they're going to enter called high school. So all of you, as was mentioned before, are benevolent leaders. You are the benevolent leaders of an advanced civilization that's here to help kids. And thankfully, you sent down two fantastic emissaries in Jay and Sarah. They're there to help these kids, to foster these kids, to find their thing, to navigate this new alien world they're about to enter. And that is high school. So with that, thank you, and may the 4th be with you.
Thank you, John. I know questions, comments?
Questions or comments? Yes, Director Buss.
So I really appreciate this as my oldest will be going into 6th grade next
Okay.
year. And we toured Sequoia and she was super intimidated. So I have a couple questions. I actually brought along one of her little friends when we toured the school and they mentioned the sports and the little girl asked why they didn't have softball. Why do we not do softball or baseball?
Well,
Too much competition with the other clubs going on, or?
the school district has approached us recently to add some additional sports. That was not one of them. It was actually tennis or cross country, but resources, to be honest with you.
Okay. Okay. And then is this open to 6th graders or only 7th
So
and 8th?
6th graders can be on teams, so they could play up on a 7th or 8th grade team. We don't have 6th grade teams because a lot of times they don't have as many kids to play, and we don't play older kids down. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah. And then does it cost money for the student to play on these teams?
Absolutely free. So
that's
the
great.
money that pays, I mean, we're basically breaking even on, we're not making money off of it. We're providing a space and, a collaboration with the school district. The schools actually provide the funding And the only thing that the kids have to do is try out and sign waivers. So
Oh, that's
they don't
great.
pass any fees on to them.
That's really great. And for John, I'm coaching my first soccer game on Saturday. So I'm going to use the sportsmanship up here and winning down here. And then also the no yelling. My daughter just completed chorus and she doesn't want to do it again because she said the teacher yelled at them all the time. So it was really sad. So thank you for pointing that out too. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It is obviously in the middle school level, you know, back when the sports were developed, when the league was developed, club teams and, you know, higher level play wasn't as popular or as pushed. So now middle schoolers are being more pushed to be that higher level and get the skills ready to go for high school level and be on club teams and, you know, put all this effort into it. So it is getting competitive, but we still try to maintain the like entry level beginning type league and, you know, please have fun philosophy.
I love it.
And we do have rules where we don't have the typical rules that you would have like in high school. Every player has to play a certain, you know, certain something depending upon the sport. And that's up to the coaches to decide, or up to the coaches to keep track of.
Thank you. Director Cusworth.
So I think you answered one of my questions. I was wondering where you fit in with city leagues. So the city has basketball leagues, I assume, like baseball leagues that they have, or is there no middle school outlet for basketball for?
There's CYBA, but those are outside of school. These are school organized. So they're representing their school.
Okay. So you're in addition to those city leagues?
Yes.
And you're also free?
Yes.
So is one of the ideas I was wondering for yours to be, you were talking about that people will go to club teams and things of that sort, more for kids who wouldn't be playing for city leagues, or is it just kind of an organic thing that happened that the schools wanted to have? School teams, like the high school has school teams, so they wanted the middle schools to have school teams.
I mean, this was 25 years ago it was developed. So
Okay.
I'm assuming I was not at the teen center then, but Jay was. So Jay might have.
So
Jay
did
might have a little bit more history of
So
that, but I'm
did-
assuming there was, you know, club wasn't as popular as it is now. So it might not have been an option for play.
What's the question?
Well, did the schools approach you because they wanted to have school sports teams, but they couldn't really manage it? And so they wanted to use your facility, or is this something that you thought of and you approached the schools? And then I was wondering how that fit in with all of the city leagues. Like she was saying, they don't have softball and they don't have soccer. Do you have soccer?
Yeah, we do soccer.
You have soccer also, because I thought we have a huge soccer, you know, city leagues here. I was just wondering how this all came about when we have youth sports. What was the impetus for this?
In Sarah's speech, there were two principals that brought teams to the teen center. I reffed that game. I was the ref. So that's when it started. From there, it's just, yeah, there's been an interest. Students let their principals know what they want. Principals come to us, we form a team, but just as far as softball I mean, softball is pretty big on a youth level here in Conejo Valley. So really haven't had that brought up to us, but.
Okay, so it was the schools that came to you and said, we need something.
And back then the schools didn't have gymnasiums. We had
Okay.
the gym.
Okay,
So, yeah, so the schools didn't add their gyms till I think about
2000.
So, you know, when the leagues first were when we were approached at the teen center, we had the gym for them to play.
I see. And then we were talking about practices. So he's coming from Newbury Park to practice. Do all of the kids come to practice at the teen center, or do they also practice at
No,
the
I meant
schools?
he was coming to the games.
Oh, it was the games
He
he's
has
coming to.
practices in his own gym at Sycamore.
Okay, so that was my question. It
Yeah.
sounded kind of like he was coming on, so I didn't know how you were managing that many practices, so.
Yeah, now that they have gyms on school campuses, the practices are all organized through the school and the coaches. and they just come to the teen center for their actual competitive games.
So do you have all volunteer coaches?
The schools either, they offer stipends, I believe, to coaches or their volunteers or staff.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you. It sounds like a wonderful program. And thank you for the balls.
Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was curious. I see a lot of the, whether it be the sports activities or just activities in general that the Park District offers, it's almost like an incubator. You're getting either providing facility or providing instruction or opportunities for youth, kids, even adults to learn something that they don't already know. And I was wondering, with this middle school program, do you find that these are kids who are already competitive and playing basketball and they just want to do it for their school? Or are they a little more inquiring, as John was saying, looking for their thing and thought, hey, I think I'll try this out and see if I like it. And it's a, comfortable, welcome opportunity at the teen center with people that they know, not too threatening. I was wondering how you find what type of kid is actually showing up to these teams.
Both, to make it a quick answer, but there's different schools have different amounts of kids that want to play. Like for instance, Kalina Middle School, they have probably like 40 or 50 boys in each grade, 7th and 8th grade, that try out for the team.
Wow.
So in some cases, like if we had an extra night of the week, we would be able to field numerous teams. But during the fall, for instance, we're every day of the week, we're playing every night from 4 to 9. So
Wow. Okay.
busy times.
All right.
Busy's good. Busy is good.
John,
I can probably
being a
answer
coach
that,
and working with the
so
students.
as an example, there's a 7th grade co-ed volleyball team that I'm coaching right now. 10 players on the team. One of those players has touched and played the game of volleyball before. The other 9 are absolutely brand new to the sport, and they're there because they thought it was something that could be their thing. So they try out and they fall in love with the game. And of course, they will hopefully continue down. On basketball, kind of the same deal. And our little 7th grade girls basketball team won the little championship through all the schools recently. And of that, 2 of them play outside of the school, and all the rest of them are just kids that just love the game of basketball and want to learn and do and pursue it down the road somewhere. So as the girl that wrote that note, when I mentioned that it's fantastic for me that she made the Froshsoft or the JV team at Newbury Park, so did 4 of the other girls from that same team. So at Newbury Park, I coach with my daughter the Froshsoft volleyball team. And I would see those basketball players come into practice after our practice. Nothing could touch my heart more than when they would come up to me and say, "Hi, coach," and want to just acknowledge that I see them there and that they continued in the sport they love. And this is their thing. They love for me to just see them there in the gym doing their thing at a level beyond what I took them to.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that, because we're in this very competitive youth sport level where if you don't have your kid at 10 years already with multiple years of experience and going to all these specialties for coaching, whatever their expertise is, that they're not going to get to the next level. And then it kind of pushes away the kids who just want to explore and learn. So I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
And that is, I mean, the parents don't have to pay, thousands of dollars. The kids are representing their school. They're playing with their friends. And it's not as competitive as the other outside teams that they may be playing for.
Thank you.
Director Lang.
Yes, I want to piggyback on a comment that Sarah made about this age. Our kids in this age group just getting out in these new environments and the new challenges. And one of the activities that our board participates, and administrators too, participates in, is the Youth Commission Forum, where we go and interact with the teens on the various tables. And
Oh yeah, that's the summit that they have every 2 years.
anyway, very beneficial for especially the older adults to really hear these kids talk about the issues and so forth. And the one I'm just gonna briefly mention, one of the events they talked about, the topic was bullying. You know, you hear about bullying and various take different degrees and different types and so forth. But this one young girl who was in middle school was so distraught because at lunchtime she would have meat in her sandwich. You know, that was her thing. Her parents prepared her lunch with meat sandwich. And she was bullied by 3 other girls during lunchtime who obviously didn't eat meat and so forth. And she was so upset, you know, and I had a little conversation with her after our little session. And I said, well, if that's something you like, stick with it, no matter what it is. It's important to you, and don't let these other kids, you know, upset you to the degree that you are right now. So this teen center that we have and the various programs, sports that we're hearing a lot about, is so important for these kids. So keep up the good work. I know you've got many programs at the teen center, and we're just very, our communities benefited from the teen center for all these years. And so keep up the good work. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
They're definitely lucky to have a teen center in their community.
All right.
John, I've been involved with youth sports for years and years and years, and I wish we had coaches like you, whether it's in soccer or football or basketball, whatever it is. All too often you get the coaches like the young lady was talking about in her letter to you that are yelling and screaming. It's really embarrassing for the parents, for the coaches, and for the kids. So thank you. And I wish you could teach all the coaches in our community to behave like it sounds like you do. So Sarah, I was interested that you had made the comment about funding, that the schools pay for all the costs of this. Well, that'll probably be one of the other shocks, that maybe not the students, but the students' parents, if they go on to high school and high school sports, because they're going to find out it's certainly not free in high school sports. The booster clubs are going to bend your arm for all kinds of money. So the fact that the schools are supporting this, I think is terrific. And just one last comment, Sarah, given our audience this evening, the improvements that we have in the back patio of the teen center, you might just briefly mention one of the improvements back there on the hard courts.
I'll actually let the senior center take that on. I mean, yes, we do have a new backyard, and yes, it does have an outdoor basketball court that does have some pickleball lines on it, but that is not an area of programming that I necessarily will get into because I work with teens, not adults. So I think there might be some talk for future something or another, but I don't know what that is.
That's going to be Dana's role.
I'm sorry.
Dana in sports is going to be taking that on.
Oh, good.
So there will be in the near future some pickleball lessons happening at the teen center during the day when the teens aren't there.
Excellent. Great.
Right, Dana?
I guess we will see.
It's getting ready to
It's
run
all
away.
it's all in talks. Nothing has been decided or guaranteed or decided upon.
Okay.
But,
Anyway,
yeah.
Sarah, Jay, John, thank you so much for everything you do for the young folks in our community.
Thank
We
you.
do appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, item 4 on our agenda, items for the public. I do have a number of speaker cards. There's just one for items from the public. The remainder are for agenda item 9A. We do ask our speakers to come to the podium, make sure that we can hear you on the microphone. And given the time constraints, we are going to ask speakers to limit yourselves to 3 minutes. So for item 4, the items from the public, Carol Newman. Nerman.
So tonight I'm going to continue to talk about the issues at the senior center with the Conejo Senior Volunteer Program, bullying and mobbing. And it took me a little bit of time to get up enough energy to come to this because this part really bothers me and I didn't think I had enough energy to talk about it till now. I had left off last time talking about Janet Adair, who I think had been really difficult with me since she was good friends, it seems, with some of the bullies and kind of taken their side. But I want to talk about an incident that happened in November. That was after I spoke here the first time about the bullying. Janet's also, in addition to working at the in the Conejo Senior Volunteer Office, she also does lunch every once in a while. And what happened when I ended my relationship with Busy Bees and CSVP, Patty wrote a letter saying that none of this stuff would affect any of the other things that happened at the senior center. And that was just like bull, because it immediately became difficult in other areas. And the thing I'm going to talk about tonight is the one that happened on November 7th when I went to lunch. Maybe before, there was reasonable accommodation. Patty had been really very helpful during the Woolsey fire and getting me stuff to eat. And then in the other program, which is, I guess, a different pile of money, for the senior lunch program, she also helped me with that about 5 years before this happened. And she's really nice about it. You know, it takes time because you have to go through and look at the labels and everything like that. And she was really very helpful. So I thought there wasn't going to be any problem. So this last fall, I started going to the senior lunch to have lunch with my friends. And so the problem is that Janet was there one day at lunch. And she was just really rude. She didn't want to really be helpful with my questions. She didn't want to accommodate. She kept on firing out these comments and back and forth, like, well, you can do this, but you can't do this, you can't do this. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And, I'm like really hard of hearing. I have profound hearing loss at certain frequencies, and I just can't hear in the room. It takes me a while to understand things. And she just kept barking this stuff out and just, really getting very frustrated because I couldn't answer her because I couldn't hear her. And I didn't really know what the decision, should I have the brown rice or not? I didn't really know. But then when I finally made my decision and I left, she went out and broadcast to the entire room, like, oh, I'm sorry for such an inconvenience. And I just like, somebody with a disability probably shouldn't be shamed into this. And I just thought that was really inappropriate. And it also, the room just got really quiet then because I have a lot of friends there and they know that they know the situation. I usually let people go ahead of me in line because I know that it takes a little bit more time for me. And I just thought her behavior was really unfortunate. And I always had what I considered to be reasonable accommodation before. But then after the meeting, I would just get this really horrible response. I just can't believe that she would do that to a disabled person. Janet Adair doesn't get to decide what disabilities are real and what disabilities are more like personality disorders. And I thought that.
Excuse me, Carol, could I ask you to wrap it up because we have gone through the 3 minutes, so.
Yes, I thought that the federal law applied, that it was reasonable accommodation would be something that you would do in a senior program. And I certainly know that there's not a requirement to be so rude in the program. So I'm going to continue with this next time. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Carol.
For those of you who listened.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion. Director Cusworth,
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I second it.
Director Buss, any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Item 6, consent calendar, 6A, approval of minutes, and 6B, approval of warrants.
Mr. Chair, I did have a couple questions before.
Yes, by all means.
On the warrants, I had a couple of questions. I notice on it's page 6 of the warrants, page 23 of our packet. There is a transaction to the Conejo Schools Foundation for the elementary music tickets. I was wondering, what was that supposed to cover? Oh.
On page 23,
It's page 6 of the packet, page 20, I mean, 6 of the register and page 23 of the packet.
Could you repeat?
Yes.
the question now?
I'll-
Melissa's here.
I'll repeat that for our finance staff. With, on the transaction regarding the Conejo Schools Foundation for over $16,000 for elementary music tickets. Was the Park District responsible for buying? Rochelle, okay. Okay.
Well, what is the question? I might be able to handle it.
The transaction was for $16,000 for elementary music tickets for like 1,600 students. And I was wondering, was the Park District responsible for paying for the student admission for those musical events?
I think we use our ticketing system. I think I think we're able to use our ticketing system, which means we get paid the admission price, even though it's for the Civic Arts Plaza. I'll have to double check with Rochelle when she gets in. But
so are you thinking it's more of a bookkeeping process?
Yeah.
Is it actual expenditure?
right.
Okay. All right, and then maybe this is the same thing. This is on page 9 of the register and 26 of our packet. There's a payment of almost $20,000 for SoCal Brush, but it says Costco weed abatement. Is that the same thing where even though it's technically a Costco expense, it just goes through CRPD for the transaction and then the costs are
Yeah, so we
distributed?
have a contract with city, Costco, and CRPD all have one contract with the brush clearance company, but we each pay for our own properties.
Okay,
So
okay. All
That's
right,
for our CRPD brush clearance property.
Gotcha, okay. Those were my only questions on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, are there any other questions on either 6A or 6B?
And Rochelle's
Oh.
probably gonna-
Oh,
I heard I missed a question. So the 16,000 for the Conejo Schools Foundation, so it's the music program. So when we charge the families and they pay through registration, they pay $10 for their ticket for the music festival.
Mhm.
But that festival is put on by the foundation. So we write them a check, $10 for each kid that participates back to them because they're the ones that are actually paying for the tickets through Ticketmaster and all that good stuff. So
Sure,
it's just
okay.
it's how we collect it for the child.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. Okay, items 6A and B, I'll entertain a motion on these two items. Director Lang,
yes, I move that we approve consent calendar item 6A and B.
thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Director Cuthworth? Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item 7, deferred matters, public hearing preliminary budget fiscal years 2023, 24 and 24, 25. I'm going to open the public hearing. Am I turning this over to you, Mr. Friedel?
Well, are we on the actual proposed 10-year CIP plan
No,
or just the
that's-
public
that's
hearing?
9A.
No, we don't need any additional comments.
And
Public
I'm-
hearing's open. This is a time to receive information about.
Okay, so
budgets in
I'm
general.
I'm going to assume that we're just going to leave the public hearing open and we get to 9A.
That's fine.
Okay, all right. Well, that takes care of that. So we're going to move along then to nothing in item 8, items for discussion. Item 9, new items, 9A, proposed 10-year capital improvement plan, proposed capital improvement budget for fiscal years 23, 24 and 24, 25. Our
Remember,
where's the theme song though?
so remember, Andrew is taking over for Tom Hare for the first time. So Padawan, Andrew Mooney.
Thank you, Chair Upper, members of the board. Just wanted to let you guys know, I have been training. So I've been working to be a Jedi park master. My button's not working. There we go. So Star Wars Day, we thought we'd have a little bit of fun. So, but
Just like the movie.
back to business. So opening item is our 10-year capital improvement plan. So just as exciting as Star Wars. But so just making the board aware, we're not approving anything tonight. We do have another budget hearing on June 1st as well as June 15th. So this is an information meeting to put the capital improvement plan in front of the board as well as the public to receive comment, feedback, and then just kind of go through our process. So we would be bringing this back with changes and comments that we received through the process in the next 3 meetings, including tonight for the next 2 meetings, including tonight for the June 15th meeting, with any revisions and comment to be incorporated into the approved budget for the next 2 years. So I'm going to provide you an overview kind of the process, and then I'll get into more specifics of the plan with the boring spreadsheet with a lot of numbers but a lot of fun projects on it. So really kind of overview of how the CIP works is the years 1 and 2 are the budgeted projects. So those projects are what we are approving to move forward with staff come the June 15th meeting. And so the goal is that those are balanced. We have money to be able to do them, and we're moving forward with doing those projects based on our process. Years 3 through 10 are planned for, so it's for planning purposes. However, years 3 through 9 are balanced with the funds that we do have, for the estimated funds we have, but in 2023 dollars. So the goal is to really kind of take a look at where we are now, where we're going in the future, so we can have an idea of what projects we are going to be looking to accomplish in the future. And really the overall goal is to get it in front of the board and the public, but also we utilize it for balancing for Quimby and park dedication fees. So there's certain fees that we can only, or certain funds that we can only spend at certain park facilities. And so this is a way that we every 2 years, we put it in front of the public and we can review it as part of that. And so we do get fees from residential development, ranging from multi-family to single family, depending on the type of development. Obviously the trend kind of throughout Southern California, as well as the city, is a little bit more denser housing, multifamily, which means a balance of our park system. So as more people come in, we need to kind of balance our improved parks as well as our future possible parks that we're planning for. So our process for the capital improvement plan actually starts back in October of 2022. So we send out the past 2021 approved capital plan to staff, and we review it, and we take a look at completed projects, any ongoing projects that might be carryover into the next fiscal year, as well as projects that might be new. So whether it's a need or a want, but some kind of new project that's being brought to the table, as well as any projects that aren't needed anymore. So sometimes we have like a roofing project or a painting project that we have on the schedule. And then we might go ahead and take care of it with existing maintenance and operations funds, depending on the level of work, or an emergency case like a leaky roof. We're going to fix the leaky roof before. And obviously there's thresholds of monies and approvals and making sure Melissa's okay with what we're spending out there, fixing things out in the park. As well as we do speak with like our on-site supervisors and managers are part of that process. And so they're kind of boots on the ground. They're interacting with the public on a daily basis. Part of their typical work routine is speaking with the public. And so with that, they get a lot of input and a lot of feedback. When I was park planner with the district, one of the things that I would always hear going through the process of putting in a new playground would be, man, it would be great to have shade on a playground, right? And so now we've actually, like 5-6 years ago, probably, that's a standard kind of feature. It's working in shade into playgrounds. Obviously, we got to balance what we're doing, how big and all that. But it's, again, it's part of that balance and project load as well as just like the cost of what we're doing. And then kind of another note on that, it's just because pickleball's here back in, make sure I'm speaking right, back in back in, I believe, 2015, pickleball was put on the CIP at Rancho Conejo. And then we looked at from a funding standpoint and usability and need, and we moved forward with adding more pickleball courts. So it was part of our capital improvement plan back in 2015. And then we later developed, I believe we went out to bid like the summer of 2016. So again, process takes time. And we were able to develop that. And I believe it was open spring, maybe early summer of 2017, because we had some heavy rains that winter for construction. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background on that aspect of it. As well as when we're doing this review, we give staff about 3 months. So we do have a kickoff meeting in November after the initial plan goes back for review. So we do walk through it with staff. With a kickoff meeting in November, they get about 3 months to review it, talk about it with their staff. Some people like myself, again, as a planner, I would just have a rolling list as I talk to people in the public and I add projects or add ideas. And so I know some of our other staff members do that as well. And then that way, when the time comes, we can add it to the plan. And then the goal really is to get all those inputs back from staff in late January, early February. And then I take that and work it into our existing approved plan, how it affects that from a budget standpoint, but then also priority and need of that as well. And then we also do have some back and forth with staff, possibly with members of the public or community groups and things like that are part of that process as well as when we start looking at money and things start to become a little bit more real. Jim and Melissa are part of that review process. So from the finance folks and the general manager, they're part of the process to make sure that I'm not just throwing projects out there, spending money to spend money. Again, it's the balance of everything that we're doing from a need first to looking at what we want to do and what we accomplish to kind of grow what we're providing for the public. And so those priorities are actually based, and the balance is based on preservation of assets. So current assets, like the city, we're pretty developed out from our park sites. And so we do have to take a look at what we have and what we need to maintain and take care of now. Safety, any regulatory agency compliance issues that we need to kind of get up to current speed on, as well as financial sources, partnerships, and then creating and enhancing recreational programming. So really kind of as the demand increases, we want to make sure we're balancing the need with what we have in our park system with the facilities we have to balance the need from our programming standpoint, as well as disaster preparedness. And then we also look for opportunities for like enhancing conservation or improving efficiency. So whether it's our irrigation systems, we've recently been putting in fertigation systems in the park system. So again, efficiency is to try to make sure that we're improving, not just doing it the old way, because that's the way we do it. So really kind of taking a look at our infrastructure and how that all works. And then one of the last things is workplace health, right? So making sure that it's safe for our employees and safe for the public to be in the places that we're recreating in with them. And so as Jim kind of mentioned, and as I mentioned Jim mentioned last meeting, and I mentioned it in the written report, we definitely have a shift from hey, building new capital to more of a maintenance and like operations amounts for our budgets, right? And so looking at the capital plan in past years, I believe back in like 07, 08, we were using the funding available for capital. About 60% of that fund would go towards capital and 40% of that fund would go to maintenance and operations. And now we're looking at about 47% is going to capital and 53% is going to maintenance and operations. So it's definitely kind of the shift. Again, we're an older district being in our 60th year. We have a lot of infrastructure. And so we have a lot of things to take care of and maintain and make sure that we upkeep them for the current use as well as the future use. And then another thing, as far as kind of like trends go, we've been really fortunate, especially in my time with the district, to be able to work on new park projects, to be able to get awesome partners from grant funding, from, the conservancy to the city, as well as rebates with like drought and everything. And so we've averaged about $5.5 million in capital. But of that is about 42 million total, including this year right now as we finish for like all the playground work and finishing Page Lane and the teen center projects. And 17 million of that of $42 million was outside funds. So we've had an influx of this outside funds to be able to get a lot more work done, which then also we've pulled from other funding sources of our own to be able to kind of match this windfall, if you will, of these outside funds to be able to take care of a lot of cool projects and do a lot of cool work. So again, it's kind of our current state is really in more of a maintenance mode, and you'll see as I kind of get into the nuts and bolts of this plan, you'll really kind of see what are we doing new, what are we doing to maintain our existing facilities so we can keep the doors open and keep people having fun and being able to enjoy our properties. So feel free to look in your packet. So it's the same spreadsheet that's on the screen in your packet. I also, part of the report, I kind of break it down into different charts. But I'm going to start with year one is here. And actually, can I steal your mouse? So we typically have like annual projects that we do. So that's these top 5 here are annuals. And some monies go up and down depending on what's going on. But typically we have our annual enhanced play area equipment and surfacing. That's to maintain and repair existing playgrounds. That's nothing new to the plan, as well as our annual fencing installation. And those are all district wide. So we're using those funds district wide to be able to make repairs. And then we do have our annual grant CIP funds for our community user groups that we set aside every cycle. And then we do have an open space trail and fencing construction. So that would be new fencing and new trail construction, as well as we do have our ADA assessment and conduct repairs and reports, taking a look at our facilities to make sure that we're keeping up on it. So those are all typical. That's something that's been on the plan for a while since I've been here. And then we also have a lot of carryover. So again, talking about outside funding, we do have a handful of projects that are being carried over just from a timing standpoint. It happens from a bidding or procurement. Like we've got 2 of our 8 playgrounds done now, but we still got to build 6 of them. So it's more those we know are going to roll over into the next fiscal year. So that's already been approved. That's already in the works. So I'm kind of breezing over that. But that's a good chunk of the breakdown, I believe, is just over 9 million, 9.6 million for year one. And so really the new projects that don't include carryover, the 12 largest projects that aren't carryover projects are $1.6 million. And so we do have at like Rancho Potrero, we've been doing work. This will be our 3rd year doing work at the new, newly acquired, not new, but newly acquired equestrian center. And part of that agreement is to be able to put monies into the property to make repairs and to improve what we do have there. Conejo Community Park, if you remember, we've gone through an assessment. We're taking a look at phasing that. So unfortunately, like you'll see in year 3, we do still have a $20 million project. However, we don't have $20 million to build it. So we are taking a look at Conejo Community at what we do need to repair. So the west parking lot off Janine Drive needs some love and repair. The restrooms need some love and repair. And we're looking at moving our grounds worker 2 to the west side. So they have a dedicated shed, which will provide more storage for Rochelle's rec folks at the center with the existing shed that we're in, as well as we're doing paving improvements. We're doing some minor interior improvements and AC improvements to the actual existing center. And then kind of going down the list, we have a couple projects at Triumpho Community Park, where we're doing a refurbishment of an existing volleyball court. We're adding a drainage system near the tennis courts. And so just, again, we have properties that need love and repair. Chumash Indian Museum, we're replacing some door hardware. We're replacing AC units. We're repairing existing window framing. And then going back to kind of the more formal parks is Conejo Creek South. We got some fencing repair. We got quite a bit of fencing around the sports fields there. And then Dos Vientos Community Park. This is really the only like new project from not a repair or replacement. And it's seating for the archery range area. So it's a lot of renovation and repair is what we're doing with our available capital monies. And then going to year 2, annuals are the same. We only have 3 projects actually in year 2. It bumps up a little bit because we do have renovating our existing district-wide skate park. So we do have an existing skate park that we've been working with a consultant on. And so we are looking to implement that into construction for year 2. Existing community pool at CLU, we need some pool deck repair work done. And then again, Rancho Potrero as part of our agreement, we're putting in funding there to make some repairs on the existing facility. So some good projects that there's some fun stuff happening. However, it's not as exciting as years past. So then, and I'll kind of go overview a little bit more for like years 3 through 9. But year 3 is a good size year as far as projects that are happening. However, the big one is Conejo Community Park. And in the board packet, everything that's highlighted in orange as part of the report is unfunded. So it's projects we want to do, but we know that it's substantial funding to be able to do. Conejo Community, if you remember back in 2021, was actually in year 3 and it was unfunded. And so we're constantly looking at opportunities, seeking grants and other revenue sources. However, we're going to need a large revenue source to be able to execute that project. And then just kind of going through highlights of the larger projects. We do have additional pickleball courts at a location to be determined. So we do have Triumpho Community Park, Oak Brook Neighborhood Park were the 2 highest scoring as part of our assessment that we took to the board back in November 17, and then Del Prado was the 3rd. So we felt it was best to group those together, and then we would be reassessing that as time goes on and as we're preparing for next budget cycle to take a look at that. We also do have some repair at some irrigation system work at Conejo Creek South. Lynn Oaks Neighborhood Park expansion design. We have that listed in anticipation for future development. So as the density increases in the city, we need to make sure that we keep up with the people for parks is kind of always the thing that I say, but it's as more people come in, we need to balance that load on our park system. And then jumping to year 4, we have Lynn Oaks Park expansion development, again, unfunded. We're looking to use developer money as Quimby and park development fees come in. And so we would allocate that in zone 4 actually is where that property would fall, which there are a handful of projects in the works now at the city from a planning stage for that. And then similar with Rolling Oaks, we'd be taking a look at providing new parkland of the property that we just purchased in February, and to be able to execute some work there as well. And our goal really is to get things as ready as possible if we have funding. And so then when we do have opportunities like grants, we have opportunities from a funding standpoint of park development fees that come in, that we're ready to go. We're not kind of being reactionary. We're being proactive with how we assess and how we move forward on new development within the district. And then going over to year 5, similar again, we have our new park development at Rolling Oaks, and then we have some various improvements at Conejo Creek North Park, and then renovating an existing walking path, at Oak Brook Neighborhood Park. And then just kind of a couple highlights as we work through, like year 6 is enlarged tennis court parking lot and restroom at the Wildflower Playfield, additional reservable picnic area at Conejo Creek North Park. And then year 7, we have some parking lot improvements at Conejo Creek West, as well as some additional reservable picnic area at a district-wide park location, kind of TBD. And then jumping into year 8, since we've kind of I wouldn't say gotten ahead necessarily, but we've been proactive with the replacement of our playground. So we're not looking at doing too many playgrounds in the next few years, but in year 8, we do have a handful of playgrounds that we are working on. So I believe there is 6 in that year, as well as some kind of shade structures and some new improvements. Again, based on need and funding, those might move up or they might stay in those current years. And then in year 9, we do have a possible new play area at Conejo Creek South Park, a walking path at Rancho Conejo Playfield, and then looking at replacing some fencing at Dos Vientos Community Park. And then year 10 and beyond is unfunded. So this is like any kind of dream project, any good idea we think that could happen, we put in year 10. And so we do have, because based on need and use, development at Conejo Creek Northwest Park, and that was also included with pickleball. So that would be a site that we would review for possible pickleball when the time comes for funding. We'd go back out to the neighborhood and the community to get feedback. We got Musco lighting retrofit district wide. We got additional lighted pickleball courts at Rancho Conejo Playfield, again, based on our priorities set by the board action in November. Putting the 3 in year 3, we got 2 in year 10. And so again, it's funding and need and based on the feedback we've received from the public. And then year 10, we got all kinds of great projects, maybe dog park number 2, possibly skate park number 2 in the east side of town. And then we get into year X. So year X is again not funded, it's beyond year 10, but basically we would be taking a look similar to Conejo Community, be taking a look at all of our community parks and community centers and doing a needs assessment, and then taking a look at possibly replacing or renovating the existing buildings to kind of bring it up to speed. And then again, we kind of highlight it in orange at the bottom of year X, but always looking for opportunities with new land acquisition, just because land is so scarce in the district. And so just knowing that we are looking at possible influx of residents, we want to make sure that we're kind of looking out for the long-term growth of the district as well. So we'd be taking a look at that. And then back to kind of just overview with the funding. You know, most of our capital improvement funds are budgeted from park dedication fees, as I mentioned before. However, we do have our assessment district. So we have a district-wide assessment. We also have our landscape maintenance districts in Rancho Conejo and Dos Vientos. So we do set aside funds as part of those, which we'll be covering later this evening. And then we're always looking at different funding sources. So whether it's grants, we do have great partnerships with the city, as well as other agencies. So really trying to take a look at what we can accomplish being kind of the little guy or the small budget in government, and really kind of working with our partners to be able to do more for the community and the patrons that we serve. So with that, I actually have one more joke. Just one more. Part of me learning to be a Jedi is mind control. So I'm going to conclude this presentation with an attempt to mind control. So you have no questions for me.
Oh, darn.
Yeah.
But seriously, I'm available for questions.
That's called wishful thinking, Mr. Junior Jedi.
Yeah.
Questions for our Jedi warrior, Miss Director Lang.
Yes, in reference to Rancho Potrero in the first couple of years, knowing that one of the equestrian, the one to the east, is anticipated to have some lighting repairs and so forth. Is that included in the first 2 years?
Yes. So that would be a project that we would, we've set aside. If you remember, we have a separate kind of master plan document, if you will. And that's something that myself, Brian, and Sarah with Ride On would need to sit down and prioritize. But yeah, that's ongoing review, and so that would be included in that. I'm sorry, I don't know why this isn't. It's so small.
Excuse me, just for a moment, I go through my many pages. You mentioned Rolling Oaks, and I'm not sure the community or the audience knows where Rolling Oaks is. We just recently purchased that, and that's south of the 101 near Rancho Conejo Boulevard.
So it's in between Moore Park and Rancho Road.
Park and Rancho. Just to the east of that
Right next to the surgical hospital.
surgical house. Thank you.
And the city transportation center.
I think that'll be the extent of my questions. Mr. Chair.
Okay. Director Nichols.
Mr. Chair, I just want you to know that I spent an hour on the phone this afternoon with Mr. Mooney.
So you got all your questions answered.
I got 90% of my questions. Actually, I got 100% of my questions answered, but it was just a couple that I told him I wanted to ask for the benefit of the group here. The first one is on the year one list, includes miscellaneous improvements at Rancho Potrero Community Equestrian Center. And I wanted to know if that includes a CRPD monument sign, since that is not present at the present.
Yeah, so that's something that we would review and talk. I believe it came up in our committee discussions, and that's more of a just, we could include it as part of that budget. But it would be a discussion with the committee and talking with how we label that property.
Okay, yeah, because I know right now there is a nice sign out there, but it doesn't depict that it's actually a CRPD facility.
Sure.
So, okay. And then also on year 6 regarding the enlarging the tennis court parking lot at Wildflower Playfield, we've had a lot of comments, a lot at the Casca board meetings, or directed to Casca, but also to the park district regarding the parking lot at the end of Arbalest for access to Wildwood Park. And so would this additional parking help to benefit that at all to some degree, or is there a possibility to expand it even beyond what maybe would be anticipated?
There isn't tons of room really for a large parking lot like we talked about earlier today. It would probably be a little bit smaller parking lot, just from like topography standpoint and grading, but then also not to create too much of a overtake the park with parking, I guess. And so that's something that we would review and take a look at the need when the time comes from a funding and use standpoint to work with Casca and to see how we would handle that. But right now it's in year 6 and it's not a heavy priority just because there's other things in action there. So.
Okay. And then the last one I had was on page 38 regarding partnerships and agreements. And you have a very extensive list of a lot of the grants that or cost share, however you want to look at that. It was provided on behalf of the city of Thousand Oaks for some of our major projects. And it seems to me like any major project we have in our park district, the city has participated in to some level, been a great partner with us. But they also have a number of projects that we have participated with the Conejo Valley Unified School District. And I mentioned that there is no dollar amount there, but if I remember right, you were saying that these projects were actually on their properties. And so the partnership was, they were being gracious enough to allow us to use their land, so to speak. And it was just the park district having to pay for the improvements. Is that correct?
Correct. Other than futsal was more directed, that I did not manage that project, Tom did. But that was our project that we did on their land. But the other 2 projects like Bayer and the pool work, it was their major project and we were funding it. And they were managing it and taking care of the work.
Okay, yeah, because I was curious, because I know they're certainly a community partner with us, but without the dollars and cents there, I was just curious how that works. So thank you for that clarification. That was all that I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Director Buss.
I have a question on the partnerships with the city. Considering how many people are here, would they partner with us for pickleball, and maybe they could show up to some city council meetings to
we're.
Sway them?
Yeah, we're always looking for partnerships with the city. You know, it's just like, I think brought it up, I think Chuck or Chair Huffer brought it up, sorry, was the teen center project. And the goal of that was to be dual use for adults as well as teens. So yeah, definitely the city is a partner, and that's something that we could look to for future development if it was a co-partnership on something.
Maybe they would fund it on our property.
Possibly.
Yes, Director Cusworth, I'm not forgetting you.
I just making. Sometimes it's hard. You're looking this way, you're looking that way. You don't know.
Moving right along.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to say, when I was reviewing these, it's interesting, just like being a homeowner, that a lot of the things that you do to maintain a park aren't really fun. Like
They're all fun.
fencing, you know, like you just think the fencing should always be good. And a lot of times you don't think, no, things have to be maintained. And our parks always look beautiful because, you're budgeting for maintenance. And so I appreciate that you're looking at it 10 years. No, we have to maintain what we have, or it's going to start looking like a shabby park. And it's just like at home, you never want to replace the water heater. It should just always work, but sometimes those things have to be done even though you don't see them. Just in our discussion here, are the futsal courts at Los Cerritos ever used?
I'm not familiar with their current use. I don't know what it hasn't changed since we opened, right? Same use and love that's happening there. Yeah, so our club soccer team's there 4 days a week,
Oh, okay.
and that's been pretty consistent since we put them in.
Because I know over at Estella Park, they have a futsal, and that's, you know, that actually has some pickleball courts there. And whenever I try to go play pickleball, the futsal kids would be there. It's pretty, I don't know if they're still there so much. So I was just wondering, so the ones that are used at Los Cerritos is pretty much used by a soccer team. It's not just open play. It's more of a reserved situation.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Because with the partnership agreement with the school district, it gets locked unless when the club is there to use it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I didn't think that the school ever had it unlocked for open play. So that absolutely answers my question. Thank you. And very good job. This is a lot of work. So I appreciate that.
Okay, we do have several speaker cards before I ask. our-
Mr. Chair, I have
Yes,
one quick question
Director Lang.
for the presenter on Lynn Oaks. And we know that is school district property, correct?
Correct.
If I recall a question when Mr. Hare was here, that there might have been some discussion about our taking over that property or purchasing it or any, is it?
To my knowledge, I do not know about any conversation of that, just because we have a lease deal that works well. Obviously, we'd be checking in with the school district if they have plans and coordinating with their staff. If they were looking to make it available, we definitely would be interested in taking ownership of it. But from my understanding, it's a lease deal that's looking to continue to be a lease.
Okay, so our improvements, proposed improvements, will you be checking with the school district?
Yep,
before
they've already been involved. We reached out to them before we started any staff process on it 18 months ago or so. And then when we invited them to take a look at our concepts, and we invited them to the public meetings that we held with the neighborhood. We did, I think, 2 rounds, total 4 meetings with the public there.
Very good. Yeah, make sure we cover our base. Thank you.
Okay. As I said, we do have a number of speaker cards. Before I invite our speakers to come up to the podium, I have no further questions for you, Mr. Jedi Warrior, so thank you very much. Just to highlight a couple of things that have already been stated. Most of the projects that are in budget years 1 and 2 are either projects that we're spending capital funds on to maintain existing facilities, or they're projects that are already 1 or 2, or in some cases even more years in the planning process. These are not projects that we're just coming up with in year one and saying, okay, we're going to do this and take care of it. Andrew pointed out the pickleball courts at Rancho Conejo. It was about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but you said it was about a 2.5-year process from the time that project first was approved until it went through all the planning process and finally opened up about 2.5 years later.
Yeah, so it's probably total 3 to 4 years, and this was before my time. Dana would know about like some of the outreach and things like that they did prior, but it was approved as part of the 2015 capital plan, and then it was open by 2017. So by the time it was approved to actually getting built and open, it was about 2 years.
Okay,
So
just I want to make sure that everyone is clear that, you know, several people have asked me, well, if we came up with the funds, can we get the courts next week or next month or next year? And with all the planning and everything that has to go through it, as much as we'd love to have it happen that quickly, it's a little bit of a time consuming process. So having said that, several speakers, we are going to ask that you try to limit yourself to 3 minutes, unless you have some new earth-shattering news, like you're announcing a $600,000 grant to fund the pickleball courts. So if you could limit yourself to 3 minutes, we will have a timer. If you're running a little bit over, I'm not going to be really sticky about it. If you are one of the later speakers and you have exactly the same things to say as the earlier speakers, say, I agree with the earlier speaker, and then the next speaker will have some time. So with that, our first speaker, and I apologize if I butcher your name, Rick Schnupka. I apologize.
Take them to your girls.
To share with you some views I have. Of course, I'm going to advocate pickleball, but I also want to thank the CRPD for something they've done for me many, many years ago. I first came to Thousand Oaks in 1986, along with many families that were transferred here when GTE relocated from Santa Monica to Thousand Oaks. And there was a lot of us, and we were new to the area and didn't really have, didn't know too much and didn't know people and things of that nature. So we utilized the park district. I did. Pick up basketball games, tennis, things of that nature that helped me acclimate to the community. I got to know the people. I got to, well, I've been here ever since, really. So I really want to thank the district for all the facilities they had in place back in those days that helped me get acclimated to Thousand Oaks. Fast forward to 2013, and I was introduced to pickleball. Pickleball is very similar to a game that I used to play in Santa Monica when I was down there. It's called paddle tennis. And oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. How cool is pickleball? And of course, it quickly became my game of choice. No longer play tennis. I'm not quite as agile as I once was. And basketball is definitely out, but pickleball is in. So I want to just thank you for everything that the district has done to build the courts that we have today. I can't believe how many courts we've gotten, how much support we have from everybody that we talk to. And I want to, again, advocate that it is one of the many functions that we as older folks enjoy and can do. Parks are not only for young children or young. When I was here, I was 30 years old when I first came out here, but now I'm a few years older. And so pickleball helps me maintain my exercise and my social involvement. So that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Next speaker is Catherine Nolan.
Thank you very much. I have to say, I really like CRPD's sense of humor with the Star Wars Day. I noticed the two gremlins there or Yoda, Baby Yoda. I'm not sure who the other one is, but that's and Andrew's cape. Very nice. Grogan. Anyway, very fun. I'm here again. It's budget cycle. And so 4 budget meetings, and we plan to attend and speak and show our support for pickleball. We heard you last time when you said that we need money, the park needs money to build courts, and we are hoping to work with you as a nonprofit. We have the ability to raise funds, and we're looking forward to doing that. We're working on it behind the scenes, and you'll hear more about that at future meetings. As you know, as everybody's talking about, the existing courts are overburdened. The proposed budget that I saw that Andrew so eloquently explained has the first court construction in year 3. There's an obvious need now. I understand that we all understand that these things take time, but is there a way to move it so that it fits within the 2-year budget plan? And I think that was called the budget cycle, year 1 or 2 of the budget cycle, perhaps in place of the skate park at Orchard Park that's cost $2.3 million. I think that, well, how many pickleball players do we have? Could you all stand up? Thank you so much for coming and showing your support. This is a small representation of the hundreds of pickleball players that we have. And I think that we have many more pickleball players than there are skateboarders. So if you have a chance to reconsider and give pickleball a higher priority, that is what I request on behalf of the pickleball community in general and Ventura County Pickleball Club. Also, lastly, I have my USAP Ambassador pickleball cards with me, and I'd like to invite you all to come out and try pickleball. So may I give you each a card? I'm available. Great. I'm available a week from Saturday, and I can invite my friends, and we'd love to show any of you who want to get out there and try to hit the ball. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
May I just respond? I just wanted to let Catherine know that I actually did go out to the Thousand Oaks Community Center last Wednesday to observe and actually get some quasi orientation on how to play pickleball. So it was very interesting. I must say, though, that of the 3 courts that were there, only 2 were being used. So obviously we don't need any more pickleball courts, right? Not so much. I did learn the advantage of having some of the indoor courts versus outdoors. That was very interesting. The last thing I just wanted to mention while you're there is I think this group will be the most informed group about Park District and about our capital improvement program and all things finance. And even now with the MRCA than any other group in the population within the city. So I hope you're enjoying this free entertainment while you are here, but thank you for being here. And I know you will be much better informed about all things. So thank you for being here, even though you're having to kind of burden yourself through some of this, but thank you.
Thank you. And could I say that there's a big difference between playing indoors and playing outdoors. So I invite you to come and try it. Now that you've tried indoors, please come to try outdoors too.
Thank you.
Director Cussworth.
I have a question. So where are you going to be and what time and what day?
Rancho Conejo Playfield
Okay.
at 1 o'clock on the 13th.
Mother's Day.
Oh, is that? No, the day before, Saturday.
Oh, okay. Okay, so 1 o'clock Saturday.
Or by appointment.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Catherine, but probably have to be by appointment because I mentioned earlier, I'm involved in youth soccer and we have a AYSO soccer tournament all day Saturday and all day Sunday. So I will call you or a couple of these other familiar faces in the audience because I've only tried it once and I should learn more about it firsthand. So thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Alan Linderman.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm actually going to speak about something that I wasn't planning on speaking of. And so it really has to do with the presentation that we just saw from Andrew. I reviewed the budget before I came here, and I did see that pickleball was, number one in year 3. But what I learned today was that year 3 could be year 10, because you're going to reshuffle all of these things after year 2. So if you don't make it into the first 2 years that are budgeted, then who knows, where we're going to be. So I'm not excited about that part. I don't think anybody else here is either. And I would love to jump on Catherine's point of, skateboarding or roller skating or whatever, and the difference there. And, we don't want to compete with those kids, but on the other hand, we would like some of that money. Andrew also mentioned in his presentation that somewhere along the line, there were donations. And then someone mentioned maybe we could reach out to the city to pay for things and do things. So a couple of questions there. Number one, why haven't we reached out to the city yet? It's not anything that we as a pickleball community can do. We don't have access to that. And as far as donations are concerned, I don't know where those donations are coming from. We seek out people that we know in organizations large enough to make the kinds of donations that you're looking for. But apparently the board, it sounds like, has access to individuals or corporations where perhaps you can reach out. We'll be happy to join you. We'll be happy to participate. We'll be happy to run numbers. We just don't have access. We don't know who those people are. We don't know who those organizations are. And if you do, maybe you can help us to find that money so we don't have to wait to what might be year 10. There's no guarantee that year 3 is going to become year 3 based on your budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Just a couple of brief comments. I don't know if anybody else from the board, but you said year 3 could become year 10, and in point of fact, before we started this process and before so many of you showed up, pickleball was actually out in year 10. So we're making progress. We've gone from 10 to 3. You never know, but we're heading in the right direction. Okay. And in terms of funding, you folks are showing up at our meetings. City council has meetings. I know at least one person here knows a city councilman. Never hurts to talk to the people who have the deep pockets and see if maybe they might be interested in helping out financially, and we can help out in the actual execution. So Director Buss.
So I run the Thousand Oaks Chili Cook-Off on Sunday, and it's one of the largest fundraisers for our community. We raised $135,000 last year. So there's organizations that you can approach in the community, like Rotary clubs. I'm sure many of you are part of service clubs. And if you are a nonprofit, they can make a donation to you. So, and then you look at it and you look at crowdfunding. If you had 600 people who gave $1,000 each, there's your 600 grand. And then you could have it within the next year. So I think that there's so many ways to look at this, and our budget is our budget, but there's so many other ways. You just have to go out there and approach them. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Next speaker is Carol Linderman. I'm guessing maybe some relation.
53 years worth. I'm Carol Linderman, and I'm the treasurer of the Ventura County Pickleball Club. So I just wanted you to know some of the things that we do to raise money. We don't have a lot of money raised. We have about $16,000 that's already earmarked for court construction. And we raise that money through the tournaments. We are partnering now with CRPD with our tournaments, and we split the revenue. For that, we are doing a scramble event that raises money. We sell t-shirts that raise money. So on the small scale, we are definitely looking at funding, helping to fund in the small way with our events, all this pickleball stuff. So I just wanted you to know we're not sitting and waiting for all the dollars. We are definitely working to fund in some way and raise these dollars on our pickleball tournaments and all of the fun things that we do for the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Just so you know, we did have some neat pictures in our board packet tonight of the most recent pickleball tournament. Looked like everyone was having a great time out there, so. Okay, next speaker is, and I shouldn't butcher this, but I might, Mike Rivas.
Yes,
Did I get it right?
you did.
Ah.
That's pretty impressive. My name is Mike Rivas, and I'm speaking on behalf of pickleball. I want to say a couple of things as I set the context for my comments. First, I want you to know that I enjoyed the presentations as well. I think you guys are having too much fun. The second thing I want to say is I got my PhD at UCSB in teaching and learning. And one of my areas of expertise is community building. And I can tell you by the things that you do here, by how you allow members to have say, even though they may not get their way, they have an opportunity to speak. And what you do just by your postures and so forth, you listen. And what a difference that makes. You know, the law may say that you've got to let us speak, but you don't really have to listen. But you guys are choosing to listen, and that's impressive. And so this is my first meeting to come to, and I just wanted to say that. The second thing in setting context is that I grew up playing sports in South Texas. I played basketball, football, baseball. Matter of fact, I was pretty good at what I did. Before my senior year, I was chosen the top linebacker in the state of Texas. Now, I went on to college to play football, and at the fourth game, I ended up injuring my knee. 3 operations later, and I never played again. Through my sports, I've had a variety of injuries, I guess you would say. I have 2 artificial knees. I have 2 artificial hips. I had a lower back surgery. My neck is fused, and my shoulder is artificial as well. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is because I play golf, but I thought my sweating days were over. I didn't think I'd have an opportunity to do that again. Didn't have an opportunity to compete again. And then along comes pickleball. And I go out there and I sweat. And I go out there and I get an opportunity to compete. Now, pickleball, and some of you have said you've already tried it already. Pickleball is really an interesting sport because it is both simple to play, but complicated to master. Just ask Roy over there. He played with me and he watches me and he's going, because he plays well. He really does. But it's amazing the amount of patience that the group has had. Talk about community building, and that's what it does. I know my time is running down, but the community that I'm seeing there, it's pretty amazing. And you were given basketballs and you were given volleyballs. But I can tell you that as we get older, we won't play those, but you can play pickleball. Amazing. And so all of a sudden, as your population gets older, the people that you serve, the people that vote, those people need an opportunity to be active. And pickleball gives them that opportunity to be active. It's fun, it's community building. And as Catherine said, I do hope that you'll come out there and try it out. I'm 3 weeks in, and it is just, it's pretty cool.
Thank you, Mike. So now we have the Jedi Warrior and we have the Bionic Man.
Yeah.
Okay, next speaker is Tim Bearer.
I'm sorry I got here late. I just got off the court and I was having some great games. So I was really into it. I really appreciate the opportunity to be up in front of the board. And I've recently, in the last year or so, become part of the Ventura County Pickleball Club. And these people really have something going. And I'm encouraging all of you not only to take Catherine's invitation to come out and see what's going on, but please come out on a Saturday or a Sunday morning if you've never been to Rancho Conejo playfields and see what's going on between the hours of like 7 a.m. They start at 7? Is that when they start? And noon. There are 10 courts full of players and there are 40 people waiting their turn to play games, socializing and having a blast, and the music's playing and everybody's having a great time. And I don't know if you can find that with any sports or recreation facilities that you have throughout the district that have that type of community camaraderie and social aspects that are brought forth by the pickleball group. I wanted to comment and have you all know that there was a really interesting HBO Real Sports episode by Bryant Gumbel. If you're not familiar, it's a 60 minutes type show that they do on HBO Sports. It was the October issue or the October edition, because they do it monthly, not weekly. And he covers off on 3 or 4 issues of sports in the real world. And he did a segment on pickleball in October of last year. And I encourage everybody in this room to go look at it, because their guesstimates on how quickly this sport is growing is that the 5.8 million players who play pickleball currently will be 40 million by the year 2030. There's no sport that has ever done this in America. It's taking over America. And I think that the people who love the sport and your community deserves more opportunities to play the sport. So I think it should really become a priority of Park and Rec's district's funding to offer this to the community because of the social aspects that it offers. And I'll close with something that I know. My sister and brother are in the Skateboarding Hall of Fame. Danny and Wendy Bear, you can look them up. It's kind of cool. They're right in there with Tony Hawk and Tony Alva. They were the pioneers of the sport with the Hobie surf and skateboard team in the mid 60s when the wheels were clay. With all due respect to skateboarding, and my son would kill me for saying this because he's a beautiful skateboarder. He's 34 years old and he's 6'3" and he's like a ballerina on a skateboard. But that 2.3 million that's going to that sport and those kids who want to skateboard, they all have mothers and fathers, aunts and uncles, and grandfathers and grandmothers who are playing this game. And the monies that are spent on those kids to play that sport, when it could relate to how many other people would enjoy the opportunity to be playing pickleball if there were more courts, there's just no comparison. I mean, it's really got to be taken into consideration. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Tim. Yes, Director Cusworth.
So my question is, whenever I'm hearing everybody speak, it's kind of like it's a community, it's social, you're doing it, but the courts that we're proposing to build would not be over at Rancho Conejo. Is that going to be a problem? Okay, so it will still be fun if it's at another place? Yeah.
Could anybody who's responding, if you could go to the mic, just so that the thousands of people who are watching at home will be able to hear you as well.
All those people at home. I'm Sean Howie. I play pickleball too. But pickleball courts are best centrally located and with lots of courts in one place rather than one court here, one court there, one court here. And the reason is that Rancho Conejo has so many players there is that there's 6 courts there. So what happens is you have almost every single day that I've ever been there, there's over 100 people there every day, almost throughout the day, sometimes a little less in the afternoons, but they're there all day. And the reason is I go over there and I don't bring a team. I don't call anybody. It's not like tennis. I used to play on the tennis team at Cal Lutheran, and tennis, you got to have to set up time with someone's the same level and that sort of thing. But in pickleball, you just show up and then you're grouped with 4 and then the next 4 are on, the next 4 go on. And so if you have one pickleball court, you don't get that crowd. So what you do when you have a pickleball courts, when you design them, it's best to have more in one place than one in each park, because that's where you get the chance to really accumulate with lots of people. And that's how pickleball plays. Much different than tennis, because you have 20 tennis courts in your district, but only 12 pickleball courts. Now, the tennis courts can be splittered here and there, but pickleball courts are best grouped together. And that's why, like, if you have tennis courts now that are where the pickleball courts are, convert the tennis courts to pickleball courts. And I know that's a sensitive issue, but in the United States, there's 50% more pickleball players than tennis players. And I sent that information.
Okay, and Sean, we're gonna have you fill out a blue card so that we know who to blame for this, so. Yeah, okay. Just point of, some of you have been involved with the planning process we've been doing. One of the criteria that we're looking at, wherever we finally decide on a location, is that it will hold multiple courts. We're not even thinking about 1 or 2 courts in multiple locations. For a variety of reasons, Rancho Conejo is not as high a priority on the list. One of the criteria that we're looking at is we'd like to have another pickleball complex, if you will, a little bit different area in the city, so that the people who don't live within 5 or 10 minutes of Rancho Conejo maybe live within 5 and 10 minutes of Westlake or Central Thousand Oaks or something like that. So we agree, having 1 or 2 courts really doesn't serve the purpose that we're looking at. Were there any other board comments? Are there any staff comments? Nope. Okay, well, thank you all very much for your time. As we said at the very beginning of the meeting, this is not the end of the process. We still have 2 more public meetings before the budget is finalized. Not going to make any guarantees, but we certainly hear you loud and clear and in large numbers. So thank you all very much for coming out. And as always, you're more than welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting, because we got lots more numbers coming up. So I'm going to close the public hearing on the budget. Thank you. Okay, item 9B, consideration of resolution for the. Oh, you want a short break? Yeah. Sure, we can take a short break. Yeah.
Yes. It's Star Wars night. Thank you, Chair Huffer, members of the board. So we do have 3 maintenance assessments tonight. I'm starting with the Rancho Conejo. And we do have our consultant with SEI via Zoom for just any more technical questions that may arise. So thank you, Jeanette, for hanging out with us for a bit. So just a little background. Remember, in January, the board approved SEI. They were doing the district-wide assessment, and we added them to the Dos Vientos as well as the Rancho Conejo assessment. So they've had some history with us with the district-wide, and now they're doing all 3 of our assessments with us. The recommendation tonight is to adopt the resolution that would be a prelim approval of the engineer's report, declaring intention to provide an annual levy and collection of assessments, which would be our next board meeting on June 1st. So with Rancho Conejo, there was a slight increase from last year. It was in 22-23, it was $106.10. We're looking to increase it to $110.19. You will see with having a new consultant, having a fresh set of eyes on the assessment and doing a parcel inquiry, there was actually 3 residential parcels added. So there's 3 benefit units added. So there is a change in that and the number. And if we did not make an increase on it, there would be a $5,200 loss in revenue to pay for the bills for Rancho Conejo there. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Mooney? Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mooney, I have a question on page 46. Where there is, it's on the resolution, I guess. It lists the different amenities, parks, playfields that we have. I didn't know if it's critical or not, because I know there's some legacy on when these were developed. But in addition to the tennis courts, now there's pickleball courts. So should that be included, or is this just retaining that original legacy language?
This is retaining the original legacy, but the park was actually built in phases. So pick the addition of 6 pickleball courts wasn't technically an additional phase of development at that park site. So we added 4.1 acres, 4.3 acres, and 4.3 acres in 3 different phases on that park site. And so that's why the original engineers report shows it that way, and the resolution shows it that way.
Okay,
So similar to like a playground, yeah, if we expand or change a location of a playground, we wouldn't necessarily make a note of it
okay,
from a phasing standpoint.
okay. And then in addition to that, in comparing to the Dos Vientos list, Dos Vientos has a bullet for open space, but Rancho Conejo does not. And yet in the table in the very end, it has open space acres. And so I'm wondering why is not the open space included in this bullet list for Rancho Conejo?
I believe due to the maintenance requirements of that open space is my understanding. With Dos Vientos being like a planned community, there was trails incorporated into that. And I believe it's slightly different at Rancho Conejo from my understanding, just from the amount of developed trails and such, where it's more just open space land versus actually like developed is my understanding for that.
So there was maybe an anticipation in Dos Vientos for maintenance, but not so much for Rancho Conejo in such that they did not have to collect fees for that?
Correct, because of the amount of trails, yeah.
Okay. But nonetheless, on the map on page 81 shows open space. So that open space is part of that district.
Assessment, correct.
It just, there's no assessment for it.
I wouldn't say there is an assessment necessarily, but there isn't actual tangible work to be done there. From a trail perspective, from my understanding of that.
And are there no trails in that open space?
You're talking about Rancho Conejo or Dos
Rancho
Vientos?
Conejo.
I believe there are trails, but then it's from the that development. I do not believe that there's trails that we maintain as part of that assessment district.
Okay, because I think the trail was there before the development was.
Correct. That's my understanding as
Okay.
well. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Director Lang.
Comment on Rancho Conejo. I recall that a lot of that open space is down into the Barranca. So that's unusual for one of our parks to have that much property. Because that Barranca's, I don't recall them mileage or how many miles for Rancho Conejo, 3/4 of a mile, something like that of Barranca.
But that Branca is not considered part of the Rancho Conejo Park though, is it?
It's CRPD property.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's not within the Rancho Conejo district that we're talking about here.
So some of it might be, but
Yeah.
it's not the developed portion of
Yeah.
from a trail perspective.
All right.
Right.
Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Mooney on this item? If not, we do have a resolution. I will entertain a motion. Yes, Director Cussworth.
So I recommend that we adopt resolution 050423-A and to be read in title only and all future readings be waived.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Director Lang?
Yes. I'll
Thank you
second
very much. Madam Secretary, may we have a reading?
Resolution number 050423-A, a resolution directing preparation of the engineer's report, declaring intention to continue assessments for fiscal year 2023 to 24, preliminarily approving engineer's report and providing for notice of hearing for the Conejo Recreation and Park District, Landscape Maintenance District number 92-1, Rancho Conejo Place.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second in the reading. Are there any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Mooney, carrying on with item 9C, this would be for the Dos Vientos Landscaping Maintenance District.
Thank you, Chair Hupper, members of the board. We are looking at a decrease actually at Dos Vientos. Again, having fresh set of eyes and doing a new parcel inquiry. There were additional properties found at Dos Vientos. So even if costs go up as more benefit units are added to it, there was a dip in the fee the rate. And so last year we had a rate of $331.28. The proposed rate is a decrease to $318.46. So there was an increase of approximately 110 benefit units to the assessment. And those included 2 commercial properties down the street from Sycamore School, as well as Sycamore Neighborhood Park, as well as a multifamily apartment complex that was there. So, and with that, I'm available for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Mooney? Director Lang?
Yes. Now, these assessments have already been on this year's tax bill, right?
This past year's tax bill.
Right. I'm just wondering if they'll be able to compare last year's against this year or future. And if they're going to be any positive comments to CRPD and reducing the assessment.
Yes, some of these go unnoticed with it being a minimal change to a point, just over what, $13 or so decrease. But yeah, some folks might notice, some other folks might not notice at all. So.
Well, I'm sorry, cut me, but I think that's a important comment in reference to how often we get, I don't know how often we do get comments from the public taxpayer.
We typically get a couple a year, and sometimes it's when someone new is moving in, just so they get a tax bill and they want to understand what they're paying for. So, but typically, I want 1 to 2 a year, and whether it's positive or negative, it just depends on the year. So,
I applaud the staff's work and so forth, and staying on top of these things and not just automatically, increasing it every year.
I think more as important is that we now have a consultant who's able to pick up on these discrepancies or errors. So, and I'm not sure that, my personal opinion, I'm not sure we want to go touting the fact that the rates have gone down, because I know several years ago we had a group from Dos Vientos and a group from Rancho Conejo who were not real thrilled with the fact that they were paying anything. So, but yeah, it's always nice to have something a little cheaper than more expensive. And the bottom line, I mean, the total assessments that we'd be receiving will still be increasing from last year. It's just the per unit rate is going down.
yeah, overall increase for the whole assessment at
Yeah.
Dos Vientos is about $7,600.
Yeah.
So total. So yeah, just cost of keeping the grass green and maintained and everything.
Yep. Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the Dos Vientos community built out yet?
Technically, yes. From a overall standpoint, I know there are a couple empty custom home parcels still.
Okay.
So there's a couple cul-de-sacs, and there's a couple areas that I believe that they could still develop.
Okay, but all the parcels are sold?
I'm assuming, yes,
Okay,
all
okay.
the parcels would be under some ownership.
Okay,
But
all right. Just curious. All right, thank you. That was it.
All right, if there are no further questions for Mr. Mooney, again, this is an item that's a resolution, so I'll entertain a motion.
Do it again.
You're getting so good at it. Director Cusworth.
So I recommend that we adopt resolution 050423 B, that it be read in title only and all future readings be waived.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Can I get a second? Director Lang?
Yep.
May we have this read, Ms. Secretary?
Resolution number 050423 B, a resolution directing preparation of the engineer's report, declaring intention to continue assessments for fiscal year 2023 to 24, preliminarily approving engineer's report and providing for notice of hearing for the Conejo Recreation and Park District, Landscape Maintenance District number 94-1, Dos Vientos Ranch.
Thank you very much. We have a motion, second and reading. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Mooney, we're nearing the end. Last one.
Hat trick here. So district-wide assessment, we last year was $41.51. We're proposing a change to $42.75. There are a handful of new parcels as part of this, just kind of normal routine stuff. And then if we did not make the increase, we would have a $63,000 shortfall from a budget standpoint. So, and that's what I have. So, and I just want to comment, I know Jeanette's on the line, but we've been working really well with SEI. They're a really good group, and we appreciate her team's efforts to get these updated and to get this worked out for us. So, and thanks for being on the Zoom, Jeanette. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Mr. Mooney on this item? Yes, Director Nichols.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mooney, on page 4 of the report 146 of our packet, there is a paragraph that lists in text the various facilities, special facilities. And while I see the Rancho Potrero Community Equestrian Center in the table, I do not see it in that listed in that paragraph by text.
I'm sorry, are you on 144?
146. Top of the page says other special facilities.
Oh, thank you.
It's the facility is listed in the table on page 144, but it's not in the paragraph.
Sure, we can add it.
Yep. And then on the map, at the end of the item, the Rancho Potrero Community Equestrian Center is not listed there. And the Page Lane Park is not called out by name. I think it was maybe Conejo Creek Southwest East.
Yeah,
has been
correct.
That has been changed to maybe just to update that map, since this will be filed with the county.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and add that. Thank you.
And that was it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments? If not, this also is a resolution. I will entertain a motion. Director Buss, give it a shot. Sorry.
Okay. So I move for approval of the resolution numbered 050423-C. Directing preparation of the engineer's report, declaring the whole thing. Oh. Declaring the district's intention to levy assessments for 2023 through 24, preliminarily approving the engineer's report for district-wide park maintenance and recreation improvement district 62-1 and providing a notice of public hearing.
And to
be read in title only,
all future readings to be waived.
and all further readings be waived.
Excellent. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll be happy to second.
Director Lang, thank you very much. Madam Secretary, may we have it read?
I'm glad I'm not the only one who has trouble saying preliminarily.
Yeah, dear Lord.
Resolution number 050423-C. A resolution directing preparation of the engineer's report, declaring intention to continue assessments for fiscal year 2023 to 24, preliminarily approving engineer's report and providing for notice of hearing for the Conejo Recreation and Park District.
Thank you very much. We have a motion, second and reading. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 10, reports and announcements. Does anyone have comments or questions about A, B, C, D, or E? Director Lang.
Yes, I have a little comment about the recreation highlights. I always like seeing the use of our rec van. And it indicates that around 40 to 50 participants between those two parks. Is that about the average nowadays, or is that above or below?
We keep getting a little bit bigger each week.
Bigger what?
We keep getting a little bit bigger each week. So,
Great,
I mean, it seems to be growing. We'll see if that stays consistent.
good. And one last comment on the calendar on page 192. On the 29th, we still have Elvis on the calendar, and I know it's not Elvis this year,
Elton.
That
as Elvis.
was a mistake, yeah.
It says Elvis.
But it's Elton John.
It's Elton John, yeah.
Yes.
Any other?
I have a comment about the Safe Passages swim program. Is Adelante participating in that, or is it just Safe Passages?
No, well, Adelante youth are allowed to attend also. Yes. So
Okay.
from Shadows, but there is a bus that goes from Conejo Creek that Safe Passage pays to get this Conejo Creek kids to.
Oh, so
there.
transportation.
So transportation, I believe, is not available at all locations, but yes, the kids can sign up.
Did you have anything else, Director Bus?
No, sorry.
Okay. Just a quick comment on the rec highlights. I was looking at the Touch a Truck and looking at my calendar and really excited to realize that my Hawaii grandkids are going to be in town for the event. So for the first time, I'm not going to urge you to have a rent-a-kid for an event. So. And although I was a little disappointed to talk to America a week or so ago about that event, and she said that we're going to have to cancel Fishing Frenzy this year, which is too bad. So, okay. No other questions or comments on 10. 11 department reports. Certainly you don't have anything more to say, Mr. Jedi.
I'm good. Thank you. No report.
Truly?
He's taking off his cape.
Well, he's no longer, that's right, he's no longer Jedi, so no more mind games or something. Does anybody have questions for Andrew? Nope. Moving along to Recreation Division, Ms. Callis.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Heffer, members of the board. Just an update because it's not on your calendar. So this Friday night, TOC is having a movie in the park with the big screen. 7 p.m. activities will start and the movie will start when it's dark, and it's DC League of the Super Pets. So something fun to do there. You already talked about the Retmobile. That's going well, getting more folks there. A couple more events coming up on May 20th. We have been doing walk-in interviews for staff, which has been really great. So we're hiring staff pretty much as we're interviewing them and they're qualified. Other than that, it's been a good couple weeks chatting with staff, making community connections. And I've been telling them, you just gotta do or do not, and there's no try. And community connections are really important for each of us, and you have endless potential to make a difference in our community. So with that, it's been a good week and I'm available for questions.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Callis? No. Moving along to Management Services, Ms. Smith.
I have no report, but I'm available for question.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Smith? No. All right. General Manager's report.
Thank you, Chair Hopper, members of the board. A card is going down. The chamber is recognizing our council member Al Adam, along with actually Vanessa Bechtel from the Ventura County Community Foundation as Man and Woman of the Year. So that's kind of cool because they're both known to us here at the Conejo Rec and Park District. The Gratitude Circle is coming up on Monday after the big Sunday event at Conejo Creek North, the Chili Cook-Off. On Monday, I put in your packet, your folder, please look in your folder. It has the remarks like by teams. So whichever your board buddy amongst our own board, whoever's presenting with you, you guys get to decide how to break apart or up those comments. The idea is we're going to go up together as a pair to do laud our recipients, our inductees into the gratitude circle. So there's like one little write-up script on the person, and then you guys can tuck in anecdotes or divide it up how you want. So get together with the person you're speaking with, and that's again in your folder. So that'll be Monday. And then we will need to cancel our meeting on May 18th, I think it would have been, because there is a statewide conference for parks. I know at least three of the electeds will be there as well as myself. So we will not be able to have a meeting on the 18th. So with that, and we do not have a need for closed session. And then I did want to actually take a break, like a really quick break, to thank the board for letting us be a little goofy and silly and have fun with stuff, because it actually helps us and lightens the day. And I no disrespect to the process. In fact, we value it tremendously and appreciate everybody. And it's just a little bit of fun humor. So the Star Wars Day thing was kind of fun for us. But I do want to specifically thank Melissa for everything you do with the MRCA on top of CRPD, because unless you see a presentation like that, the fact that 50% of your time is spent doing MRCA stuff and not CRPD, no one knows, and no one would know that. And it's amazing what you guys do. And you just remember, like, CRPD created that monster Death Star along with the state. So like, it's kind of like when you're, I guess, a parent and you have a child that gets like just bigger and better in every way, in terms of like everything it does, it turns into its own big independent thing. Its budget's bigger, it does more everything. Andrew, the work you did on the budget, all the capital stuff, and keeping that going, appreciate it. And Rochelle, of course, as always, kind of keeping the fun going. And yeah, definitely the best costume. What's her name? What's the Ray from which one was it?
She's in multiple.
Oh, she is. Oh, okay.
Natalie.
I have to watch more. Okay.
How can you forget?
It was fun. Anyway, a lot of thanks and to staff and so grateful for all the hard work you guys do. So thanks so much. And of course, our staff making the show run too. Thanks, you guys. Sounds and the sights, the Star Wars like little thing. That was great.
Yeah, I was curious, how did they?
That's
There
young
must have been
people.
some
You get-
easy
you have-
program to get that scrolling.
Well, and we do have a
stuff.
new addition over there, and Brandon he's a brand new.
Hey, Brandon.
So
Very
this
cool.
is his
Thank you.
learning session. So quite the meeting to join.
All right, so is that the extent of your
Yeah,
report?
thank you.
All right, any questions for the general manager? Yes, Director
I'll
Lang.
just make a comment on his comment about the MRCA. And listen, understands this as much or more than I do, that there's no other organization in the state of California and probably many other areas in the United States that has an organization like the MRCA that accomplishes as much as they do. And this is an important element of acquiring open space, not only in Southern California, but elsewhere also. So go MRCA.
Okay, there are no further comments or questions. Where's my director's reports and follow-up reports on meetings, conferences attended? Where did I start last time? Sure, why not, George?
Why not? And I'll have two comments. I attended a MRCA meeting yesterday. It was only 3+ hours, so not bad. And then also I attended the those Rancho Potrero Wildflower Hay Wagon event. And except for the weather, it was really a neat experience, and my family enjoyed it. It was good event. That concludes my report.
Okay, Director, were you gonna raise your hand, Director
Well,
Nichols?
I just didn't know if you're gonna go bounce back and forth or.
No, I want to keep you
I'm
guys on your
gonna
toes.
mix
see if you're
things up,
paying
sure.
attention.
I'll
Okay,
be happy to.
Marissa with the,
Pickleball match.
Okay. So I attended the Chamber of Commerce Leadership Bus Tour. And it was really fun. And Andrew didn't want me to say a really fun part of it because he doesn't want George to get jealous. I got to play with the big dump trucks and make it go up and down and do all that stuff. So
Man,
I was told
I
not to
was
say anything.
supposed to be one on the list.
Not a dump truck, not a water
Oh,
truck.
what was it? It was a
You
bulldozer.
The backhoe and the
Oh.
mini excavator, I think.
Yeah.
Wasn't
whatever the big one was.
on.
So it was really fun and it was a great tour. If you ever get a chance to do it, it's actually really awesome. You get to go to a bunch of different of the locations and oh my gosh, our employees are amazing and just telling us about all the different programs that go on in each one of those. So it was a really fun day. And you get to see like the facilities center, which I'd never been. I used to walk by it when I walked to Los Cerritos as a kid. And I was telling Jim that I thought it was like a very scary house back there that would abduct you. So it was really cool to see that the facilities center is actually not a scary place. So
It
anyway.
used to be scary. You're right.
Yeah, maybe it was when I was walking by, probably. And then on just on Tuesday, was that Tuesday? Yeah, it was Tuesday. On Tuesday, we had the Conejo Youth and Family Coalition, and we had about 25 different nonprofits here. And Rochelle and her team did an amazing job putting it together. I came back from Stagecoach and had everything ready and was able to get through it being sleep deprived. So it was really fun and all the nonprofits and the community, the table around talk was awesome. And I think that there was some really great connections made between the different nonprofits and understanding how they can help each other. So that's it.
thank you very much. Director Cussworth.
So, I went to some Stagecoach in meetings, their board meetings, and they had a general meeting. And then I also went to the rec van at Glenwood. I did that a few weeks ago and spent quite a bit of time talking with Juliet and was quite excited about how excited she is to work with the museums. So I'm hoping that will be a great partnership. And they were out there with a lot of fun things to do. So it seemed like very successful. And that concludes what I did.
Thank you. Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I had a question for Melissa. In honor of your hard work for MRCA and CRPD, and the fact that you have a wedding that was at the LA Gardens, do they have like a Melissa Smith courtyard or something there? If not, I think we need to start moving that direction.
So you were married there?
Yeah, that's where we had our wedding.
Wow.
Yeah, so River Center. And no, nothing's named after me and it shouldn't be.
Have to work on that. And then I wanted to thank Aileen for including all these community events within our calendar. Now I can see it all at once rather than having to jockey back and forth. So thank you for that. And I think as I briefly mentioned, I did go to the Thousand Oaks Community Center, not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday prior, to observe the pickleball open course, just like when you have basketball open course, well, it's pickleball open court from about 10 to 12:30, I think it is, on Wednesdays. And I was invited there by Bill Gorbach, so met him there and kind of showed me a little bit about it. And then there was one of the gentlemen that was here who was kind of explaining to me what they were doing back and forth. So I was kind of learning on the fly. And then they hand me a pickleball paddle and says, okay, now let's give this a try. It was so much easier watching than it was actually trying to do it. But it was fun nonetheless. We did that for about 10 or 15 minutes, just kind of getting the hang of it. But it was a lot of fun. They were wrapping things up at that point, and I know that they, put the nets up, take the nets down, have a little storage closet that they do it all themselves. I was very impressed. Took care of it, and then I went in to talk to the staff, America and James at the Thousand Oaks Community Center. And just kind of ask them, how it works and what they do. And they have paddles there and they do the whole thing. It's just like, someone wants to use a basketball. They said it works out quite well. And so it was just a good experience just to see how it works. But again, just like they mentioned here, pickleball players rather be outside than inside. But when it's raining, they'd rather be inside, at least being able to play some pickleball. So it was an interesting process to go through that. As the Langs did, the Nichols clan also attended and participated in the wagon ride. And we were from my age all the way down to age 2. And everybody had a blast, including looking at polywogs in the wagon and looking for flowers. They had these nice little cheat sheet charts looking for wildlife and flowers. And the kids were down on their knees, looking, kind of matching it up back and forth, trying to determine it, did the coloring, petting horses, feeding them apples. And they just had an absolute blast. So it was a lot of fun. We kind of felt like we were in Ireland, though, I think, right, George, with the fog and the green grass. So it's a little bit different. Let's see. And then as far as what I've done since the last board meeting, I had 3 California Association of Rec and Park District meetings, a legislative committee, a conference committee, and a finance committee. And just wanted to mention, as a follow-up to our CIP discussion this evening, there are park districts around the state that are deferring maintenance just for lack of money, not by a decision to be made as to how they're going to spend it. It's just they don't have money. So we are in a wonderful decision-making process that we actually have money and are just having to choose how to spend it. So we are very fortunate that not all park districts are in that position. So thank you to, again, to the staff for putting that together for us. And I know it's a team effort, but thank you all for making our jobs a lot easier than if we had to make those reports ourselves. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just very briefly, I didn't have anything directly related to the park district in the last couple of weeks. I did head up north and study playgrounds in the Seattle area in depth. And I showed Andrew a little video clip of a really neat, a fairly new playground, a newly renovated playground in what they call the Federal Way section of Seattle. And one of the features they had there was a playground merry-go-round that is flush with the ground, and on either side of the merry-go-round there's a gate that can open up for a wheelchair to be wheeled in, locked down, and they close the gates. And so the kids in the wheelchairs can go on the merry-go-round along with the other kids and have a spinning fun time. So, and according to the sign they had on this thing, that was the first one of those particular devices that had been installed in the country. So it was kind of cool. So other than that, the only other thing I had hoped I was going to have the numbers, but the tax program did finish up, and the numbers that I heard, we ended up doing something like little over 2,100 tax returns during the tax season. So helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. Request for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. Anybody have anything? No. Items from the public. I forgot to ask the first time around. Do we have any public standing by dying to speak with us? No. Okay. Thank you very much. You said we do not have a need for an executive closed session.
We do not.
In that case, we are adjourned.
And thank you, Aline, for making every meeting a great meeting.